Welcome everyone to Order 42. I am your host, I guess, Rob. Yeah, it's my show, right? So anyway, it is good to see everybody. I don't know if anybody's in yet, but it is the support over the last month has been just insane, and I really, really appreciate it. But today is going to be a lot of fun because I get to have a good friend on, and he's been on the show once before, and you know what? I owe him a better show because I was nervous, I was shaky. Things are a little different now. I'm a little more used to things. So anyway, let's just bring him in. Jim, how you doing, buddy?
That I want to strike down your better show comment because I had a great time last time. I'm just happy to be back, man. It's great to see everything you're doing, and the show's been great. I've been watching far, well, not that far, but it's good to be back, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
And I have to say that looking at the couple clips that I could find of the last show, I normally wear a hat every single day, but when I was on the show last time, my hair was nice, and then today, my hair, I did my hair. You inspire me to look nice.
Oh.
It's weird.
Well, it's
okay. But it's
that's
weird.
Awesome. Yeah. I don't know what to do.
I like where your hair's going though, dude.
I have this weird. I don't know. It's almost like I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's once it starts to grow, man. I'm gonna have some 80s big hair is what I'm gonna have.
That's cool. I'm down with some 80s big hair.
So yeah.
I'm down with some 80s big hair, bro.
So let me ask, how's life been treating you over the last month or so? I mean, I think things seem to be really shaping up for you, and things are, yeah. So yeah,
things are going really well. I started a new job. I'm looking to work remotely, and the company I work for has continuously demonstrated that they're really they're keeping the safety of the employees at best. That we're working remotely indefinitely. Things are going well. They gave me a Mac to do my job, which I'm not happy about, but that's okay. It's fine. It's small at least, so I can shove it aside when I'm not using it and whatnot. But I'm comfortable. I'm looking for a permanent place to stay now, and I've got a few options because I'm being paid well. But things are going really good for me.
That's awesome.
I would say.
That's awesome. I mean, it's it's like one of those things where, me trying to, you get in your own head, and you get in your own little tunnel vision, and I've been trying to figure out what this show is going to be, and figure out work on graphics and all that kind of stuff, and kind of like you said, from afar, I've been seeing what's your troubles and tribulations through all of this, and it's good to see that things are turning around for you, because I was just I was hoping for you, and yes, yeah. Albert, hi. It's my biggest fan right now is Albert.
Right. Albert's great. Awesome, man. He's the best. But I had the support of a lot of people, and I literally wouldn't be here without folks like yourself and Game Changer crew and my community over on Twitch and everything in between, friends, family, you name it. Without them, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. So I'm really thankful for all that. And so to be able to do this and be super comfortable, I think the last time that I was on the show, I was not sitting in this chair. This chair is part of the thing. It's not the most expensive chair in the world, but it's way better than the $10 Goodwill dining room chair that I was sitting on for 6 months. So I'm maxing and relaxing, man. I'm in good shape, man. I started eating 90% vegetarian again recently because I can afford it now, and I got an air fryer, which I used to cook everything in an air fryer, and it shit the bed when I moved to Texas, and so now I finally have a new one. It's because I cook everything in that thing. If you don't have one, folks, get yourself a damn air fryer. And this is not sponsored. There's an American company called Yeti, Yedi. They've been around for a long time. But there's one they have on Amazon that's cheap, gives you all the accessories, and it's a beast. I love it. Love it.
Awesome. That's what
Love
I was,
experimenting with it.
later on in the show, I was actually going to ask you, like, what's, kind of like, what's your go-to right now? Because, like, well, I don't know about anybody else. I'm just, for me, immune suppressed, all that kind of stuff. I'm not doing the drive-through because
Right.
I'm, this thing's scary, man. I don't want to,
Right.
I don't want to, I don't want to get sick and I don't want to pass it on to anybody else.
Right.
But yeah, it's like what's your go-to right now? Is it sandwiches or is it, what, like, are you cooking? Are you doing like some big crazy cooking or like what you been doing?
Little bit of both. Like I like getting a lot of like for what the air fryer excels at the most is taking like your frozen foods and that you would normally put in an oven and making them way better. So like for example, frozen French fries, you put them in there, even spritz a little bit of oil on them, like a little grapeseed oil, just a little mist, and they just perfect, right? I put some vegetarian burger patties in there, and this was Gardein, who is they've been around longer than Impossible, but they decided they saw what Impossible was doing, and they kind of aped some of the formula a little bit to where like it bleeds and it's super juicy. And I was like, well, I'm gonna try these because I can't get Impossible right now. It keeps selling out everywhere it is. So I put 2 of those in there just to experiment with them, and they were amazing. And this is me coming off of eating beef regularly for the last couple of years, and nothing's going to taste exactly the same, but damn is it close. And you figure there's no cholesterol in that, next to no fat. The protein is insanely high. The fiber is insanely high. So it's again, I'm not trying to get anyone else to eat anything different, but if you're looking for an alternative, it's out there. If you want to switch to even just partial, like it's keto friendly as fuck. If you're into keto, like this stuff is super good for that. There's so many options with it. So I tend to stick with like a lot of the frozen stuff, but you can also cook. If you do eat meat, you can roast stuff in there. You can roast meat and everything else. I had done for somebody like a little tiny ham at one point just to see, and they said it was amazing. Juicy and stuff. So it's one of these things where if you get the right one, it can almost replace your oven in some cases. So, but I stick with like things like nuggets and fries. I don't do too heavy on the carbs. Breakfast, I go with like bagels. Like, I love a good bagel. Like you can see them right behind me. I love a good banana. But then I kind of mix it up. I've been doing some skillet fries. I'm all over the place with it, but I'm just trying to eat a bit healthier, and I'm back on like a vitamin regimen now and a good CBD regimen. So I'm calm. I'm happy. It's good stuff, man. You got to pay attention to how your body reacts to stuff, and listen.
I'll tell you right now, the CBD stuff is something that I need to look into. I mean, it really would have come in handy when I was, back in the day. When I say back in the day, it's like 5 years ago. But when I was like in a lot of pain, I think it really would have helped. But I mean, now it's like, I don't know. It'd probably just make me more chill, which probably isn't a good thing. Because I'm pretty chill these days.
What it does for me, and I'm sure it's different for everybody, it takes the edge off on anxiety by a lot. It evens things out without dulling anything. Doesn't put me to sleep. And it does help with some inflammatory, like any swelling kind of stuff, which is nice, which of course helps with pain. Makes up, I'm taking less anti-inflammatories, which is good for the liver. So it all kind of goes, and then you have to experiment with the dose and all that trash, but that's a whole other conversation. And I'm not a doctor.
Right. And just by the way, guys, in case you see me changing this camera angle to where it's like it's just Jim's face, what I'm doing is I'm trying to minimize the delay, because it seems like there's like these little hiccups in the internet with Skype, and what happens is the video just moves a little bit further off until and I just have to keep syncing it up. So just don't worry about that. I'm just dealing with it as it comes, man.
Hey man, I washed it today, so I don't mind the close up. I'm good. You know, if I hadn't washed, I'd be like, wait a minute, what are you doing? Let me put a hat on. Shit.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's my thing is that I'm just, thanks to my genes, I'm just super greasy. I'm just a greasy guy. So,
Bro, same.
I
Okay.
mean, so this just, I have to, it's such
Trust me.
and that's why I was shaving my head for so long. It was like, man, it's so easy. I don't have to worry about it. Just every 2 weeks, go in there, and then I don't have to worry about it.
I have a big fucking head, and so when I shave my head, it looks really weird. So like, I have pictures. I have a yearbook, so to speak, from Marine Corps boot camp, and there's a few pictures of me, doing the martial arts stuff, and I'm in front like, "Rrr." And I thought I was looking badass, but I looked like a pudgy dork with a shaved head, which is exactly what I was. But yeah, no, I did the flat top for a long time, and I like it. But everyone around me is like, no, you don't want to get that again. Girls in particular, like, no flat top. I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
worked well for me.
that's how like I really enjoyed the shaved head, but a lot of people were like, no. In fact, my wife was saying that, she goes, we shaved your head when you got out of the hospital just to make things easy, and you wanted it. Now it just reminds me of you being sick, so we don't want to. And I'm like, totally. Well, I get that.
Yeah,
you kind of equate that look to, almost dead Rob instead of lively and rambunctious Rob.
Lively and rambunctious Rob.
Yeah. Man, we're pulling out the words today. But thank you to Gorath Hayun for following.
Gorath, what's up, dude?
Yeah. So
he was accosting me this morning with owl gifts.
You said Gorath? I
thought I looked like an owl.
How do you say it?
Gorath. Yeah.
Gorath. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, welcome.
Or Gorath, if you want to be a dick about it.
Well, I just there's sometimes you get some people in here and you butcher their names. It's just gonna happen.
You people. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But so seriously, this is going to be fun for me too, guys, because there's a lot of things about Jim that I know, but there's a lot of gaps in my knowledge base of Jim as a person, as a being, as a citizen, as a fellow mammal. This show's gonna be it's gonna be fun. Okay,
cool, man.
And it's just gonna be weird. And I finally got this. It's been a month now, right? And I finally got to the point where I'm like, you know what? Quit trying to please. Quit trying to be something that you're not.
Yeah.
Or not so much be someone else, but sometimes we're gonna trip over our words, and sometimes we're gonna say some stupid, crappy stuff, and
right,
just
exactly.
It's just gonna happen. Just roll with it. So
be
I'm
organic.
Just gonna roll with it.
Be real, son. Be real, son.
Oh well, then it's gonna happen. So
all right, cool.
So I wanted to go back because I don't know a whole lot about your music career, and I know it kind of it starts and stops, and then starts back up, and it seems like now. Correct me if I'm wrong. But from, like as I said, delving into your history, music seems to be your main passion. Like it's your biggest passion. Is that true, or is it kind of taking maybe a back seat? I mean, tell me about it.
I would say that music is probably the biggest part of my life, by far. I mean, that's where Grindhead Jim comes from. It's from a genre of music called grindcore, and that was given to me in 1995 when I was playing these small clubs in the Greensburg, Pittsburgh area, Pennsylvania, and one of the bands that we used to always play with. These were, and this was in the day where there's a lot of like college age folks all playing together and stuff. And in that particular time, there was a lot of multi-genre shows going on. Like an indie rock band would play with a death metal band, with an industrial band, and like a DJ and a hardcore punk band, and we would just play together. It was a magical time, the mid '90s. And one of those bands, they were very much indie rock, but they had a lot of influences, everything from like synthwave to pop to punk to death metal, grindcore. And these guys really knew their stuff. And this one cat named Adam McGregor, who went on to do a band called Creationist Crucifixion. So metal fans may recognize that name. But he's a journalist. He wrote for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette for years, and now he's a correspondent in India. Like the guy is a schooled motherfucker, and he just started calling me Grindhead Jim because of all the people we knew in the tri-state. He's like, you're the guy that flies that grindcore flag. You're not backing down. And tight, 25 years later, I'm still doing it. But as far as like music being a passion, like I listen to music all the time when I'm streaming, when I'm working, if I can, in the car. One of my favorite things to do if I'm sitting back with a beer, I like to watch documentaries about how my favorite albums are recorded, or documentaries about a tour, or just watch really good live shows. But music's always going on. And it once I discovered music that I liked, I just never stopped. In the late 80s and early 90s, when death metal and grindcore were starting to kind of form, which is my favorite stuff, even though I have a pretty wide taste, I would buy, there's this one magazine called Metal Maniacs, which was like the harder edged version of Metal Edge here in the States. And that had like the thrash and the death and the hardcore and stuff. And I had a subscription, or I would buy it off the stand and like take the subscription one and put it on the shelf, which I lost most of them, unfortunately. But I would sit in my room and just read cover to cover, back to front. I'd read the liner notes, and I would take the thank you lists from bands that I was really into, and that would influence the bands that I bought. And then you get into zines and tape trading and all this stuff. You get to know people. It was a really personal thing. It was like collecting and artistic expression and archival research all in one. Someone used to call me the metal encyclopedia. Like that was one of my nicknames in the Chicago scene, because they're like Jim knows everything. I don't, but I kind of do, especially when you're talking about that era of stuff. And somewhere along the way, I decided that I wanted to play music, and it was really Metallica that first inspired me to do it. And then I heard Napalm Death. I'm like, that's it. I got to learn how to do this stuff. And that's where like the drumming started.
So you're like, well, I was going to say, you've got like these different influences,
Sure.
Of course, musically. Like, did you kind of like start a little more mainstream and then ramp up, or did you just dive straight into the
Both?
Okay. So you just all of it. Give me all of it.
I wanted to play like Lars, and I wanted to play like Mick Harris from Napalm, and I wanted to play like Roger Taylor from Queen and Charlie Benante from Anthrax, but I couldn't. So I'd start with the stuff that I could. One of the things that helped me kind of build up my repertoire, I always play with headphones on along to music. And it wasn't just Tears for Fears, Queen, Metallica, Napalm Death stuff. I would also play along to stuff like John Williams and Danny Elfman from like Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Last Crusade soundtrack and Temple of Doom and Batman Returns. I'd find stuff and I would just fill in the gaps and create polyrhythms, and just to kind of learn how to get in the pocket and flow in and out of the meter, and try to experiment with different things and different sounds. And of course, to someone who wasn't listening to the music along with it, sounds like noise, but that's fine, but it worked. And, my biggest influences as far as drummers go, easily Roger Taylor Meadows from Queen, Charlie Benante from Anthrax and SOD, and probably Mick Harris and Denny Herrera from Napalm Death. Those are the three big ones, because that covers a lot of space there, because they all have very, very different styles. They all have very different approaches to the instrument, but they're all very solid drummers. They know what their strengths are. They play to it, and they all have good dynamics but never lose power. And I remember just recently, my old bass player from Cardiac, the band I'm most known for, remarked to me something about the level of power and like the presence that I brought behind the drum kit, which to me was a gigantic compliment. because that's what I was always going for. I wanted someone to go, damn, because if the drums aren't there and they come in, I want you to know it's like there you go. And Roger Taylor was like that. He was playing some of the softest and most accessible music out there, arguably. Even on the soft songs, he's like, bam, look at it, look what I can do, look at this, bam. Love Queen. I was watching Queen this morning, actually. They had the Live at Wembley show they did back in the day for the tribute to Freddie. They put it up on their YouTube channel. I mean, you can buy it on DVD and Blu-ray, and I have it on like VHS. But they just put the show up on YouTube. It's for a charity thing. It's going to be going down in about 24 hours or so. But I watched the whole thing this morning with breakfast, and I was like, oh, even though I've watched it like 75 times, it was just so cool to just sit back and like watch Roger, who at that time was my age I am now, just killing it. I'm like, can't wait to get behind the drum kit again. Like, motherfucker, I'm hitting my second stride. He's still doing it.
Yeah, it's some of those guys. It's like they're ageless in a way, you know. It's like I don't even understand it. Like, I mean, I think you and I had talked briefly about like, you know, that I'm big into Nine Inch Nails, but it's because I'm more of the first album I ever bought was The Police, Synchronicity, in 1983. 7 years old.
Yep.
And I listened to that thing so much that it influenced my entire music taste, my entire life. And it's like, it's the composition of those songs is just, and if you listen even to my, the intro song that plays is a song that I wrote. And you can hear in everything I write, there's Police DNA in there. And but my thing was I got into the industrial side, but then I got into the, it's kind of like when you hear Trent Reznor and and you hear, oh my gosh, that's really all him on the record. That's all him.
Right.
And you're just like, you're blown away because you're just like, oh my gosh, I want to, I want to know more about that. And that's how I got into, all the keyboard music that I did. And that's where I really found my love of it. But then I just fell out of love with it. It didn't hit me the way that it used to. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I just got old or, when I got married, I lost my juju. I don't know what it is.
Well, I think there are a few things. I think that with art, especially when one writes, you have to have inspiration. And when I was younger, 'cause I'm not old yet. I like to say that I am, but I'm not really. A lot of what I was trying to express was anger and frustration with the status quo, and I still write about some of that stuff. But it's as you get older, your what you're trying to express changes, and some people, their expression there's a tunnel. Like, this is what I need to express. This is what I get out. And if you find that those feelings and emotions aren't there anymore, the inspiration goes away. So I've always tried to be really transparent with myself, be self-aware of where my head's at, and try to write. I wrote a black metal love song, for crying out loud. It was originally, the song when I first wrote it was very anti-Christian and like super like, and then I decided to change the lyrics when I wrote the demo and turn it into a love song. It was still, but it was about nice things. So it's, you can do that. But I want to whip back around to something you had mentioned before. When I was 7, the first tape that I ever got was Tears for Fears, Songs from the Big Chair. Huge influence. And I stand by the fact, and I told you this on set more than once, that album to me is the heaviest death metal album ever recorded. They just happened to use synths. You listen to the rhythms and how aggressive it is, like how dark it is, and just like, rah! But it's pretty sounding. Like,
I love I love Tears for Fears, and I haven't heard that album in years, and I need to.
Dude, that's when you want to sit back with like a good craft beer or something, or a relaxing tea. I don't know, whatever you drink to relax.
You
with
know,
headphones
colon
on.
heaven, folks.
Right. Well, I don't want you to die listening to Tears for
No,
Fears, man. But whatever it is you chill with, but a good calming beverage of your choice, legal, like in a dimly lit room, it's like soft light with headphones, just black crank that motherfucker. It's such a good record, and then there's a whole movement of bands that came out in the last 10 years, synthwave, synth pop, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. Vaporware. There's like 90 freaking names for it, but it's basically Tears for Fears worship. Like, and there's this one band that mixed like Tears for Fears with Vangelis from like Blade Runner and a little bit of metal influence in there, tiny bit. And they're called Gunship. Oh, bro.
Yeah, bro.
I can't. My ability to even is severely truncated at the moment. The even servers are offline. Such a good band. Amazing. Gunship.
Billy's in chat.
How Billy?
Hey,
Little Gremlins
that's actually,
love for you.
That was actually really good.
Yeah.
I can't do that. I can't do that.
I
voice. I've never
watched
been able to do it.
I did a review of Gremlins back in the day for this channel I used to run, and I watched it the other night, and that is one of the last clips in the video. It's the only reason it was in my head. So I'd love to say, yeah, I pulled that out of my head. I just watched it. So transparency, it's a bitch.
No, that's good. But so here's the thing. So with me, I feel like I've kind of fallen out of love with music in a right. weird kind of way, and I think it's because I got really frustrated when I was, because I had a band, I played guitar and sang, had a bass player and a drummer, 3-piece, right? I was thinking, oh, Nirvana, I love Nirvana, let's just do that.
Sure.
And I got really frustrated with the lyrics. Yeah. Not because I was bad at it, it's because I felt like I wasn't saying anything new. So then I started writing the instrumental stuff, and I really found a new passion for it because I felt there was a challenge in trying to. This sounds really like, oh, well, I'm trying to say something important. But you know what I mean? It's like you want to say something original, but it's all been said. So it's kind of like it was a challenge to try to say something with music without saying anything.
True.
and try to evoke a feeling. And then it basically, I mean, seriously, a lot of my music sounds like soundtrack music because it's...
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, it's impossible to fail at self-expression as long as you're honest. And yes, Billy, I see that I'm messing with you because you can hear me twice. I'm in your head. We appreciate you being here, and it's pretty cool. It's apropos that you're editing a scene with me in it. I'm just saying, a little weird. But I hope I don't sound like Roy right now. Hope not.
Roy's a different beast altogether.
Oh, he's a beast, all right. He's roast beast shit. And we're not going to talk about that, but I guess we are. But that's the thing is, I've done a lot of hired gun gigs where like I came in on a pre-established thing, and I've also started a lot of bands. And anytime I was in control of the lyrical content or the whole package, I was always trying to be like, I never lost the punk. I never lost the crusty grind vibe, like aggro political, super like I'm mad. Here's why I'm mad. This is an injustice. I wrote a lot of that stuff. And with the stuff I'm putting together now, very, very much the same, albeit I try to get really heady with the lyrics And I take that from Mark Greenway from Napalm Death, who's the same thing. He has this enormous vocabulary, and he likes to really mess with the words, and I'm trying to do the same thing. I'm not as nowhere near as good as he is at it, but I don't want to be super simple. I want it to be something that is challenging to me vocally, but also challenging lyrically, but is still somewhat universal, because you don't want to I don't know. There's this fine line with lyric writing where you want people to know what you mean, but you want to leave it open for them to interpret in their own way. And I think therein lies the challenge of lyric writing. And it's the same with music too. There's a Morbid Angel song, well, a whole album, but this particular song, it's called Blood on My Hands. There's a bridge riff that goes between, your verse and your chorus, and it's and the guitar tune on that record it sounds like molten lava. It's so good. The producer is the same guy that did Master of Puppets, so the guy knows guitar tones, and I can hum that riff happily, skipping down the street. Mm-hmm. But when you hear it in the context, it's a little cheerful, but it's got this tone on it. It's like, and you almost compelled to crane your neck to the side, because when it goes low, and you're like, but that's the thing when you're that into music, these kind of things crop up. Certain things that I gravitate towards, certain types of guitar tones, certain type of drum tones, certain rhythms, things. I'm getting excited. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Well, see, that's how I am with the Police. There's a chord progression.
Yes.
We're almost getting into music theory here, so I mean, this is
nerd.
But it's fun. It's fun to think about, and it's like I can't even verbalize what I'm going to try to say, but I know it when I hear it. And I know what I like when I hear it. And a lot of times it's like it's almost like, to me, because I was in band for marching band and played trombone for 7 years. So and I was in jazz band for 3 years. So I have this music theory kind of mind, trained over those years. And then I immediately started a band playing guitar, and then learning, because I don't know how to play guitar. I don't know how to play piano. I'm not good at it. I suck at it, actually. But I know music structure, and I know how things, it's almost like every 4 bars is almost like a sentence. If you're writing 4/4.
Right.
It's almost like a sentence. And what I love about some music is when a sentence is going, and it's like, now it's time for the next sentence, but you're continuing the lyrics over that. So there's an overlap. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm making any sense.
It is, and it's something that I tend to approach rhythmically with drums, where what I try to do, especially in the latter day stuff, is I like to get the most bang for my buck out of every riff. So I'll develop 2 to 4 different drum beats for the same riff, and different strumming patterns and stuff like that. So you'll take something that's like do da 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 da, and then I'll have them change it, then do it in chorus, and then we'll take that and I'll say, okay, now I've got 2 versions of the riff. I can do 2 or 3 versions of the rhythm, and you can let it play out, which is really important when you have something that's going to be sung over. You want to create this thing, because I found a lot of metal bands, and rock too, they're too content to just let this kind of little solid little backbeat go, and it's boring, and it almost separates the vocals from the music in a bad way. Whereas if you create texture within the rhythms and tone with these changes with chords versus single notes and picking patterns and down picking and all this other stuff, you're creating way more real estate musically. There's more room to express. There's tons of places you can go. Whereas if I'm just going, if I'm doing AC/DC for 40 fucking years with the same drum beat on almost every freaking song.
But they're awesome. I still love them.
Arguably. Okay.
I totally get it.
I don't hate on AC/DC. I'm just not a real big fan because it's just too much of it out there. It's the same with like 6 Feet Under, which is the AC/DC of death metal. Because they're just like,
yeah, how differently can we strangle this cat? I mean, that's really, you know.
Right, exactly. Versus how differently can we strangle this bear? Right. That's his vocals have really begun to sound like a choking bear, which is unique. But you know, when you look at where that guy came from, like man, your vocals went downhill. You need to lay off the weed a little bit, because that's what it is. He smokes way too much weed, and he has one vocal thing now. It's kind of like Phil Anselmo from Pantera. Like his vocals have deteriorated, but I think it had a lot to do with the fact that your vocal cords break down and stuff too, to a certain degree.
Well, and damage from smoking and being in bars and alcohol, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, when I started vaping, holy crap, my vocal cords, like, I like, it went back in time 10 years.
Yeah, it
all of a sudden I could hit notes, like singing in the car, because I do that all the time. Singing in the car, I'm like, holy crap, I can actually hit these notes now without it sounding like and hurting. Like, oh gosh, sounds like somebody's got a sandpaper on my vocal cords. No, not anymore. It's weird. It's kind of awesome, actually. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, it helps. But
I don't know about Alice in Chains being better than Nirvana, but I love both of them.
They're both good bands, man. I mean, not wrong.
They're different.
I would say Soundgarden is better than both of those bands.
See, the weird thing is I feel like it's like
for me.
To me, it's kind of like the whole sorry, we just kind of went off track here because I saw that from Billy and I just wanted to comment.
What track? There's no track here.
That's true. That's true.
The conversation.
But like to me, saying that this band is better than this band, especially like Alice in Chains or Nirvana, to me are like different genres. It's like saying, you know, well, Tom Hanks is a better actor than Morgan Freeman.
We're
you're
making...
like, yeah, but it's not like they both played the same exact part in one.
Exactly.
You know?
Right. We're making objective sounding statements from a subjective standpoint. So when we say XYZ is better than ABC, it's like better for my ear, for my style, whatever. Like, so, like,
it's
so
like
if we
the
talk
pound
about
for pound conversation that they always talk about in MMA, where it's like, well, this 265-pound guy is never going to fight this 125-pound guy. So what's the point?
Right? Why would you compare them? Like, what's the point? That's the same weight class. But let's just say, for the sake of
half the man of
half the man I used to be. Okay, that's Stone Temple Pilots, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Big Empty.
I don't like that. Never liked them.
Did you ever like Pearl Jam? And did you like that?
I love like the first Pearl Jam record. Perfect. They didn't need to ever do anything else because everything else I've heard from them, I'm like, eh. But 10 is just like this perfect snapshot of everything that band that was different from the Seattle scene at the time.
Yeah.
They were a bit more positive sounding, plenty dark, but they had more of a coffee house vibe to me, which is weird because they rocked pretty hard. I remember seeing the Even Flow video, which is live right after they got Steve Abruzzi on drums, and they're slamming on this song that sounds it's a really positive tune, but they look like they're mad. And I'm like,
it's so
weird.
That album like infected my brain.
Oh yeah.
Like, because if you remember, I mean, I was what 15 when 10 came out, or when really started. So you had 10 and you had Nevermind.
And then Bad Finger. And these are all very different sounding bands coming from the same homogenized kind of scene. And, and a lot, like, for example, something a lot of people don't know, like Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses is from there, from the Seattle area. And he hung out with all like the hardcore kids, and they all were like worshiping the Melvins, which no one remembers the freaking Melvins. They did a tour with Napalm Death last year, and I missed it. I was like, ooh.
I saw the Melvins once, and it was
so.
Well, the weird thing was though, I can't remember what the concert was. Like, I don't remember. This might have been in the dark times, when
before the Empire.
Yeah, but no, it's just I don't remember. I want to say they opened for like Nine Inch Nails, which was weird.
They might have.
Or wait, or am I thinking the Misfits? It
Big
might be the
difference.
Misfits.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Misfits, that's a big difference, dude. Melvins are like super slow, sludgy stuff.
Well,
Although,
all I remember is that it was the wrong crowd for that kind of music, and it
oh
just didn't
sure.
work. Yeah.
Well, it's like I saw Helmet open up for Marilyn Manson in the late '90s, and it was really, I was like, whoa, because for two reasons. One, I love Helmet, and I was the only person in the crowd slamming, which was weird. They all backed away, because they're all like this big around and pasty white, and I'm like, get out of my way. And
Yes.
Frankie Bello from Anthrax was playing bass for him at the time, and I'm like, what? It was so weird to see him on stage with them. But it was cool, and it was Helmet. Helmet, one of those bands people just don't talk about enough. Solid backbeat, those cats. In the meantime, the Biscuits for Smut. There's some of the singles. Unsung is probably one you've heard the most. Great band.
See, it's weird because my whole trajectory has been all over the place. Because I got really into electronic music, in the late, like in the late '90s, really.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's weird. It's like, I like a lot of progressive type music, but
Sure.
every now and then, like sometimes I just want to rock out, and so I'll put in, some, I don't know, broken,
Sure.
Nine Inch Nails
Sure.
broken because it's just angry and loud, and sometimes you need that. And
I
then
know
I got
Angry and Loud.
I got really into Tool.
I told you my Tool story, didn't I?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So all of my tattoos, except for the one on my left calf, were done to Tool. So I got and I got my doses of Tool.
You're done.
I'm done.
So it's almost like you equate it with pain.
Well, no, but I equate it with a person and a time frame.
Ah,
And it's something where, so when I hear it, I think about sitting in that chair, hanging out with that guy who's still one of my greatest friends, still
that's interesting,
tattooing.
though.
But it's like, Tool for me is a lot like Clutch, in the sense that amazing band, tons of respect for those guys, but I can't sit and listen to it because it reminds me of other stuff that's already in my repertoire that I'd rather be listening to. I think it's true for anybody. Like, you'll hear something go, that reminds me of it, and then you want to go listen to that. But once in a while, bands come along that they evoke a certain memory of a band or a project, and it's like it reminds you why you like that stuff in the first place. And there's times where that happens for like a whole scene, which is great. I think that's one of the beauties of, you can't really be innovative anymore. I say that, and then every so often someone comes along and you're like, I never thought of doing it that way. Like the Berserker is a band I talk about a lot, and they came out in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they have a direct mix of grindcore, death metal, industrial, and techno. And what they got from techno, like hard house, were the drum tones. They took a 505 and took all of this, the different samples, distorted them, did the thing. So like their kick drum was a 505 kick, 505 being a certain drum machine for those of you who don't know. Put it through like a compressor and a distortion pedal, so it comes out. But they're playing at like these death metal velocities, like, and it's just this blob, but there's still definition somehow. And the snare is like the highest pitched thing you can think of, but it's the only thing that's going to cut through this low end of just expertly compressed lava sounding just sickness. And there's like triple vocal attack, and it's all over the place. And it's pure chaos. First time I heard that band, I had to pull over and couldn't drive because I'm like, I had to pull over, catch my bearings, and go, this is my new favorite band. And I wrote this like long review, like, this is amazing, this is the best stuff, blah, blah, blah. And the bass player wrote me an email, and his name is Sam Bean. We've been friends for 17 years because of that. And
that's awesome.
He does this other project called The Senseless. I think you would like, because it's death metal that has a sense of humor and a very strong sense of melody. So he has like one of the most recognizable songs is a death metal song about needing to go on a vacation. He's like, I need a vacation. It's not a joke. It's deadly serious in how it approaches, but it's also got a ton of like synthwave influence, and it's all over the shop. Like he's like, there's no limits on it. I think that's what I kind of gravitate towards the most, is an artist that either do one thing and do it really well, which I know is in direct contradiction to my AC/DC comment. And then they have to just go, here's everything, here's my brain.
Right.
Pour it out.
Yeah, see, like, I don't know, man. My music taste is all over the place too. And I can even, to a certain extent, I can even appreciate, I can almost appreciate the ability of a lot of country music.
Sure.
Like old style country music.
Yes.
But then
Hank Williams Sr. and stuff like that.
Yes, but I just can't. It's just like, oh my God, these lyrics, I just want to punch somebody in the head. With the, oh my God, I just can't do it. I can't do it.
That's why I'm a big fan of like Johnny Cash. So for example,
Right.
You may have seen the picture on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. I got a new face mask, and it's just the bottom half of an album cover by a band called Phobia, and it has a skull on it, so it makes your face skull. And I got it from these guys, Warlord Clothing, used to do our merchandising, and I got a lot of other shirts from them. A couple grindcore bands, whatever. But I also got a Johnny Cash shirt, a Dimebag Darrell commemorative shirt, and a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air shirt. Because I am a huge fan of DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Like, there's a story that people still tell to this day. I was going to this Central Illinois Metal Fest in 2000. This would have been 2008 that I did this. We'd gone like 3 years in a row, but this particular one was the first time we all drove separately because it was like 3 hours away or something. And I made a data CD of the entire discography of Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. And I put it in the CD player, and it didn't leave my CD player for the trip up or back. I just listened to hip hop. Oh wait, and I'm going down there to play this brutal death metal. Because I knew I was going to hear nothing but brutal death metal.
Summertime.
That was when they started to fall off for me.
Yeah.
I was much more of the first two records. Like, I think I can beat up Mike Tyson. Hey, did you see the fight? Did you see the fight? The football player? No, the boxer, man. Come on. Love that stuff, right? But if we go on the road to tour, and people are like, what do you guys listen to on the road? Like, what do you because it's like asking a football team what they listen to get psyched up. And we're like, the only thing we can agree on is stand-up comedy. Because we had such varied taste in music that we would always, I'm not in the mood for that right now. So, but we could always listen to stand-up and laugh. So we did that a lot. And that's another thing I'm a huge fan of. Like, I am almost as passionate and knowledgeable around stand-up as I am about music. I'm like,
top three
stand-ups?
Do you have a top three?
Yeah. More like a top five, but definitely a top three.
We can do you can do five.
So like I'd say Carlin, Pryor, Burr, Chappelle. Louis C.K. is definitely in there, but it's because no matter what you think about the dude, guy's comedy's undeniable.
That guy's a genius. He really is.
But in terms of like, greatest of all time, I do think it goes Pryor, Chappelle, Carlin, and what was the other one I said?
You said Burr, Chappelle, Carlin, and Pryor.
Yeah, Burr. And then also like right there is Lewis Black. Like, so that's like a top six. But like all of those kind of fill different niches, and they're all very aware. Like there are some Pryor jokes that don't always land for me. There's never been a Chappelle joke that didn't land for me. Carlin, same thing where it's like not quite everything, but then you look at like Bill Hicks. Fuck me. All right, Bill Hicks.
I was gonna say, I was gonna say him if you didn't, because
Bill Hicks is definitely. I would say he's in a class by himself. Bill Hicks is there's stand-ups and then there's Bill Hicks. Sorry.
yeah, because
same thing with Lenny Bruce.
He's almost funny preaching in a way.
Oh, he absolutely is. Kinnison did the same thing. He was a preacher, for crying out loud, but you could tell he was doing the same thing. And I think with both, with Hicks and also with Kinnison, I think that they were on the cusp of doing their absolute best stuff when they died. I think that if you look at the latter Kinnison stuff and after the wave of the rock stardom kind of it hit and he was starting to calm down a bit. Same with Hicks. He'd kind of, okay, I got this out of my system, and he really started writing again. Mm-hmm.
There was okay, so I have a very, I have a big comedian history too, because I love,
Sure.
I love comedy. Of course, I mean, Bill Cosby was a huge influence on what I thought was funny when I was growing up.
Unfortunately.
And it's one of those things where it's like, yeesh, that's...
Like, if I met him today, I would have no problem curb stomping the dude for what he did.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make the comedy he wrote not funny, which is difficult.
Yeah, it's hard to separate. It's like Kevin Spacey. Same thing.
There are bands that we used to tour with that I consider friends. And then they had a record come out that was literally calling for genocide of people based on religion. And it wasn't just one. It was a bunch of them, a bunch of religions, which is less fascistic than just saying this one thing. But it was the way in which it was done. It was the tone of it. I was just like, eesh. But unfortunately, the album sonically, so good. But I won't buy anything new from them. I don't wear their shirts anymore. And it sucks. I got a great shirt of theirs. Like, it's an amazing shirt. But I can't wear it. Because I can't be associated with it. Right. And it's one of those things where I will still listen to it privately because it exists. It's good. But I can't espouse its good virtue without acknowledging the bads. I just don't. It's the same with Cosby. Where it's like, I'll still listen to the old stuff for some nostalgia, but I'll never go on Twitter and say, oh, this is a great record. Bad look. One-way street to getting you canceled.
But see, so Bill, right?
Yeah.
If for the people who aren't aware, I'm sure there's probably some people out there that don't know who Bill Hicks is because, he never really, especially in the U.S., he never gained that sort of popularity.
No, he was huge at UK.
Yeah, he wasn't big here. But what happened was he was diagnosed with
cancer.
Yeah, but it's I was trying to think of the.
I want to say it was pancreatic.
Yes, that's what it was. It's pancreatic cancer, and this was in late '93.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and from then all the way until he stopped, it was the most filterless comedy you've ever heard. It was angry. It was bitter. It was like grabbing people in the audience and shaking them, going, "You need to do better. You need to be better.
Wake up!" Basically,
and it was unhinged, awesome comedy, and it was the kind of comedy that. It was so funny. It was so funny. But he was the first comic. Scathing. Yeah, but he was the first comic that made me, man, that was really funny. And then 3 hours later, I go, huh.
And you started thinking, yeah.
I mean, it was just, he was insane. I started listening to him in summer of '94. So 5 months after he'd already died, or 4 months after he died. And went on this Bill Hicks hunt. I wanted all of it, and I loved it. What's interesting is, I guess it was probably almost a year ago now. After the Louis C.K. thing went away, and or it came out, and he went away for a while, and then there was that little show that came out, and was somebody recording it. Of course, that's not a good thing. When you're when a comedian goes into a club, it's like he's practicing the set, and so there are things
he's testing it out.
Right, there are things that don't work, things that do work, and it's kind of like it's almost like watching a rough cut of a movie, right? It's just you're not supposed to see that on a huge scale,
right?
But it was scathing. It was angry. It reminded me of those last few months of Bill before he said, "Okay, I'm gonna lose my voice."
Did you know that Louis has a new special out?
Oh, I've already watched it.
I
bought it, watched it. I mean, look, there's a way to be able to separate, what a man does and what his art is, or whatever you want to call it. I honestly am one of those people. Hope I don't get canceled, but it's one of those things where I can separate the two things. I don't agree with what he did. It's real simple.
I'm going to make a real simple statement on this. Okay, Louis, don't walk into a room and ejaculate on anybody unless they specifically ask you to do it.
Right.
Don't do it. And there's a thing he says in the special, spoiler alert, which I think is great. He says, out of all this, there's a piece of advice I can give you. He said, don't jack off in front of anybody unless they say it's okay. And then even if they say it's okay, don't. And you know what? I agree with that. 100%. Don't do that. On that note, I got to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Well, then, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back, guys.
Yay, break.
This break has been brought to you by Orange Block. Do you have a problem not having an orange block? Don't buy Purple Block. Just buy the orange block. Told you guys it was gonna get weird. Woo. Okay, guys, we are back. How's it going?
I feel many ounces lighter.
That's
I'm
good.
Much better now.
That's good. I'm gonna sync you up real quick. Hold on, just a second. But yeah, no, you don't have to do anything. It's just,
I am doing things.
Yeah. But So we got through. I mean, we talked music a lot. But
Yeah.
I still feel like there's more there. But I do want to
Yeah.
get to your service, because you are a veteran, basically, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're you're an ex-Marine, so I want to hear about it.
Sure. They kind of go hand in hand in a way, so it's kind of interesting. Um, from like 94 until 99, my priority was music, and I was always trying to do stuff with it. And that's a story in and of itself we can get into later if you like. But by 99, I had run out of jobs that were sympathetic to doing music. Job opportunities were getting low in general. And it was hard to stay afloat. And I ended up homeless for a while. And I would go to like these temp agencies were like labor. They would bus you out to the factory or wherever you were working. You'd work for the day, they'd pick you up, take you back, and they'd pay you for the day. And then you'd cash the check, and that was how I kind of survived for a long time. Sometimes on the street, sometimes at a hotel, sometimes at someone I met at the job site's house. And that was like a 6-month period of just like hopping around. And finally I got sick of it, to the point where someone who I had met that was like, yeah, well, you can stay with us. I only got a couch, but as long as you pay a fair share of the rent, like, you're good. And I did. And the day after I paid my fair share of the rent, I come back from work and I find my stuff on their front porch with a very, very rude note attached to it. And these people were not exactly what I would consider top shelf citizens. They weren't really criminals or anything, but they weren't the kindest people in the world to begin with. You could tell they were just kind of, well, for lack of a better word, sad. And I thought to myself, if these kind of people are kicking me out, this is as close to rock bottom as I want to get, where I have to go to people like this to survive and have shelter. Called a friend of mine up, Tony Malik, who, amazing cat, very tall fella, great whiskey drinker. I said, hey, man. He says, I don't want any surprise roommates. I'm like, no. That's not why I'm calling. But I do need a place to stay tonight, and just tonight. He says, well, what are you going to do? I says, I'm going to join the military. And I got to have one last night of fun. I'm going to call my folks tomorrow. I'm going to tell them I'm going to join the service. He says, shit, okay, cool. He comes, picks me up, go back, and I smoked a ton of pot. And to the point where you're like feeling, you're petting the cat, going, oh, you like that kind of vibe. And the next morning, he cooked me a real nice breakfast, and there's a videotape, it's still in my possession, of me shaving off my beard as a show of how serious I was about joining the military. And he was of this mindset, and so was I, that I was going to join the service and just stay. So this was meant to be a memento of like, well, here's what your beard looked like, and all this stuff. And I called my folks, and they were ambivalent at first. They weren't very trusting of whether or not I was really going to do it. But they're like, if you're serious, yeah, you can come home. Because we had a big falling out. And they came and got me, and it wasn't a particularly... It wasn't as smooth as it could have been, but I think it was as cathartic as it needed to be. So again, short version of this 4-month period leading up to me actually physically going. The next morning, I got cleaned up. My dad took me to a recruiting office, and he says, well, this is your decision, so let's talk. I'm like, I'm not going in the Army. They're too big, and I'm not going to be able to do anything special there. He says, fair enough. He said, what about the Air Force? I'm like, it's good enough for you for 2 years. It's good enough for me to try. And I walked in. They got one look at my arm and said, were you willing to remove your tattoos? And I said, you want to kiss my ass? They go, nope. I'm like, nope. And we left. And then I looked at the Marines, and I went, ugh. And we went into the Navy. And the Navy guy was all too happy to talk to me. And then we went, and I took the ASVAB, which those of you that may not know, is basically the aptitude test for getting into the service. It tells them what you're capable of doing. The ASVAB has a maximum score of 99. I got a 94. National average is around 70. So what that basically means is I could write my own ticket. I could do anything I wanted in terms of aptitude. Well, the Navy caught wind of this and decided they're going to make me a nuclear sub-engineer. I'm like, my brain doesn't work that way. I know what you're thinking, but no. But he had a quota to fill. If he got someone in that program, he probably made a lot of money, which he didn't tell me at the time, but I figured it out pretty quick. Problem was that my weight was around 220. They needed me to get down to 200 for me to ship off and that just shows how little faith they have in the physical training portion of the Navy. Not to call anybody out who's prior Navy or whatever, but I think they'll all agree that the Navy's not exactly the most disciplined when it comes to physical conditioning most of the time, unless you're on like the SEALs team or something. At least they weren't then. So I'm trying to lose weight on my own, which I was not that good at. And the funny thing to me is I would kill to be 220 pounds right now. Like I would knock over all of the old ladies to be 220 again. Okay. But I was struggling with it. I was like walking and doing a little bit of jogging, and we changed our diet. And there's this one diet you can still find the recipe for online. It's an interesting metabolic thing where you eat. There's a soup that's mainly cabbage based, cabbage and tomatoes. And supposedly the chemical makeup of it is that it burns more calories to digest it than it actually is in and of itself. So it literally, you lose weight by eating this stuff. So supposedly. And it worked a little bit. But it's also very tasty. But then different days you would like eat metabolic activation food. Like one day you could have all the bananas you want plus the soup. Then another day you could have all the like beef you want plus the soup and so on. Very weird. Tried it, didn't really work. And then to pass the time and to, build up some money, pay off some debts that I had, I took a job at a grocery store in town. I'd worked there before. I was working in the deli area, and the manager of the store was very supportive of me joining the service. But by the time I was about to leave for the service, he had decided, he's like, dude, I'd love to keep you here and make you an assistant manager. I'm like, you can't pay me enough. And I mean that in the literal sense because I need to do something else. Like, I don't want to be in this town anymore. So why I'm doing this. He says, I respect that. But in the middle of this, because I'm working, I've got a little bit of money in my pocket, and I'm comfortable for the first time in a long time, I start dating. Went out to a bar with a buddy of mine and met this girl who, spoilers, would become my first wife. Also the mother of my daughter. And we start dating. A couple weeks into that, Dad and I have a screaming match because he's like, this is a direct quote. You're supposed to be here to join the military, not chasing pussy. He didn't talk like that much. I know he thought that way, but he didn't for him to say it in that way, he was really mad. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm taking this seriously. So help me if the process is taking me longer than either of us thought. And I want to pass the time. Pardon me. So in a huff, I go to my room. I call the Marine Corps recruiter. I said, my ASVAB score is this. I'm this height. I'm this weight right now. Would you take me as is? He goes, yes. When can you get here? Within the next hour. Perfect. Call the girlfriend. She picks me up, takes me to the Marine Corps recruiter. Sign the paperwork. And I delayed entry for June 1st, which would have been like a month later or something like that. And he was much more open about what I could do. He said, what do you want to do? He said, the book is open, Jim, whatever you want. He said, you've passed, clearance tests. You've passed this. You've done this. What do you want? I'm like, I want something interesting. I want something that is going to be a challenge, but works with the way my brain is. I'm an analytical guy. He goes, why not intelligence? I said, I never even considered that. He said, you can just apply for that? He goes, yeah. They don't recruit you out of the infantry for that stuff. You have to be like, hey, I want this. And there's two types. There's traditional, like wide range intelligence, and there's signals intelligence. And signals intelligence is more of monitoring and dissecting and distributing that information, which I found much more interesting because it works with radio signals. At least that's the way it was described to me. So I was like, ooh, yeah, I get to work with like recording technology. Like that was my head at the time. So I picked that, and that's what I went into. I went go down to boot camp June 1st. And by the way, if you're in a delayed entry program, kids out there listening to the show, because this is totally aimed at teenagers.
Yeah, it's a family show.
Do not eat breakfast the morning of your last weigh-in. I had weighed in at 209, and I had to be at that or below in order to get this sign-on bonus. I was 210 when I weighed in that morning. Cost me $3,000. Skip the donut, kids. Skip the donut. It's the hashtag. Skip the fucking donut. Okay. So I weigh in and I take a flight. And it's interesting because they pay your whole way for everything. So I fly down from Pittsburgh down to Paris Island. And we had a layover in Charlotte for about an hour. And I'll never forget this. Went into a Cheers, which is a franchise, pub. And I went in there because you could smoke. And so I'm sitting in there having a drink, and I'm like just a Coke. I didn't have a beer or anything, although I should have. I'm having a smoke and everything else. And everyone else is like down in beers and like eating big burgers and all this stuff. And I'm like, nah, I did all that before I left. But I was like, just going chimney. And then you get there. Everything they tell you is true. Okay. You're there in the pitch black at night. What they do is they take the bus, spoilers, and they drive you all around the base in a few different loops so that there's no way you can trace your route back. And then they pull up in front of the barracks. They haul you off. You get on the footprints and off to the races you go. Then just push you. They shave your head right away. And then they're just constantly, they're like, here's your uniform, put them on. Here, take all your, it's like prison. Take all your clothes, put them in this bag, and you don't see them again until you leave. True story. And then you do a physical fitness test to make sure you're ready to train. And I just missed it on the run. Everything else, no. The run was good. The crunches were good, but the pull-ups couldn't quite get what I needed. And because of that, and that my weight, which was fine, but not for what the Marine Corps wants. Marine Corps wanted my frame to be 181 at most, which that's 30 pounds. That's a lot. So I go to what's called physical conditioning platoon. In other words, we want you to build up your muscle, and or lose weight or both, which is affectionately referred to as pork chop platoon. And what's interesting is they would PT you like 2 or 3 times a day, which is a lot. So Marine Corps standard exercising at least twice a day. Crazy. But because of that, you could eat as much as you wanted because you were constantly burning energy. And I didn't go nuts with it or anything, but when I came out of there, I'd lost quite a bit of weight. I don't know how much. I don't remember exactly where it was at, but I was fully conditioned and everything else. But I was in there for 6 weeks. The entirety of boot camp is supposed to last 12. So I was there for, a long time. But by the time I get to training proper, I had the base wired. I knew how everything worked. I knew what was expected of me. I could, respond quickly. So I had a leg up on all these other cats that were just now showing up for boot camp. I joined them right as they met their drill instructors and mine too. Okay. And so I left Paris Island weighing 165 pounds. I had gone in at 209. That's a 44-pound difference, which is insane if you think about it. in 5 months. Because you figure also I was building muscle. Muscle weighs a lot more than fat. Went out of there, locked and cocked. And I was wearing medium everything. Okay. I wear triple X now. That's a big difference. Okay. In terms of sizes, right? Like I couldn't fit a medium shirt on my leg right now. I probably could, but, and you know, my girlfriend, future wife and future ex-wife was there as well. We made the drive back up to Pittsburgh. Now they give you an option to take leave in the form of recruiting duty right afterwards. One of the biggest mistakes of my life, in my opinion, because I should have just gone right into infantry training and done it. But I didn't. I was stupid. Took 3 weeks and hung out back home and gained a little bit of weight and lost some of my edge. And I went down to infantry training and it just kind of spiraled a little bit to where when I finally do the infantry training, which is 3 weeks for non-infantry and it's 3 months for infantry folks, and you're carrying around like these 80-pound mortars and all this other stuff, and it was cool. Had an experience there that I've never had before or since. A young lady was chewing tobacco because we weren't allowed to smoke in the field, and she's like, "I think you're hot." I'd never had someone say, "I think you're hot," and then spit tobacco juice on the ground. That never happened before or since. And I was like, "No, thank you. Your breath smells like a dead animal. It's cool though. It's fine." And then I went to Florida for my, because I could tell a long story about infantry training, but we must move forward. Then I go down to Pensacola, Florida for my actual intel training. And I get there and I struggle a little bit. Okay. So this is a story I kind of have to tell to kind of give you an idea of where I was at, because
I feel like I should buckle in for this one.
Punk Metal Jim was starting to come back to the fore. And I get to the command, I check in, and immediately ascertain that the majority of people in the unit were either boring or dickheads. Couldn't relate to anybody. I'm like, fuck all of these people directly in the face. I was not happy right away. And so I took it upon myself that Saturday night to go out to the bar, which was like a block away. I just walked off the base, which you can, went, had many pitchers of beer, and had gained the attention of a young woman there. It was nice to flirt and, you know, have a nice hot Floridian chick be like, oh. And then around 11:30, 23:30, if you will, a Marine walks in the bar in civilian clothes, but he was like a Marine, right? And this is Sergeant Pazorski, who I had not met at this point. And he goes, "Private D? Yes? I'm Sergeant Pazorski. Yes, Sergeant? You're coming with me." "Yes, Sergeant." I paid my tab and walked out, and he says, "You were supposed to be back on base a half hour ago." I'm like, "I was?" He goes, "Yeah, we have a curfew here. You didn't know that?" "No, Sergeant, I did not." He says, "Okay, well, this is not, I'm not going to, there's not going to be any reprimand or nothing like that. You didn't know. It was XYZ's responsibility to tell you. I'll have to talk with them." But, because it was the watch didn't tell me be back by this time. And it was someone like me, someone that was just had to pull watch, and you have this whole book you sign out of, and they just didn't tell me. They assumed that I knew. I did not. Well, I was pretty drunk though. And he had made notice of the young lady I was speaking to. He's like, "Are you making time with that one, Marine?" I'm like, "Yes, Sergeant." He goes, "Good pull." he was a really cool guy, and he had tattoos, and he says, "I saw you have tattoos. Are you into, what kind of music are you into?" And I was telling him, like, naming all these death metal bands. And he goes, "Dude, I have that album. They're all," and I'm like, "Oh, my people." But Sergeant Pazorski, he's a sergeant. I'm a private. We can't really intermingle.
Right.
And we always kind of lamented that because we were very like-minded people and we were the same age. So it was rough. And just like with boot camp, there was a delay on me getting into class because there's like a waiting period or something for like your final clearance to come through. And it took like a month and a half for me, which means you're running around cleaning things, doing PT and doing all this busy work bullshit. And it sucked, frankly. But during this time, some guys, so I'm in A school. So you have A school and C school. C school, Charlie, is when you've been out in the field for a while and you come back to learn some new shit. Well, some guys had come down from Camp Lejeune, and they were going for C school. These guys are lance corporals and corporals. So I was an E1, they're E3, E4, sergeant's E5. And I get to meet these guys, and they're not lost in the sauce. They're not clueless. They've been around the block, but they also don't have that separation of like, I can't talk to you because I'm an NCO or whatever. Really cool guys. And there's one cat named Greg. He and I became really close friends because he was in a Cannibal Corpse and Deicide and Blood Creation and stuff. But the thing is, he had only heard a little bit of it. And me, being the kind of guy I am, was like, well, buddy, and I pull up my CD book and I'm like, and I'm just like force feeding him everything. And he's soaking it all up. And I shouldn't neglect to mention that in the 8 months that we were stationed together, not only did he expand his knowledge base of metal, he also went from extremely devout Christian boy to an atheist. And I did not in any way influence that to my knowledge, except by anytime he asked me about religion, I would tell him, here's where my head's at. I am not an atheist. But he just kind of was like, there's more to it than this. And he just decided to do that. He still is to this day, from what I understand. Guy is a civilian contractor for a company I can't name out in Nebraska. I'm not allowed to tell you. And he has like a wife and 3 kids, and he's corn-fed homeboy, atheist, listens to death metal. Okay. The guy looks like Will Sasso now. If you know who Will Sasso is from Mad TV, looks like him. That's the kind of guy I was dealing with. Like, really cool country bumpkin dude. And then I start going into school, learning all this stuff. And I can't tell you everything I was learning because it's top secret stuff, whatever. But it was interesting. It was a lot of fun. And my instructor was this Cajun staff sergeant. And he would end, like, we want to make sure you were paying attention. You go, compron? And you're like, compron, whatever. Yeah, Cajun, motherfucker, whatever. And we got through the whole thing. And in December, I go home for Christmas, Exodus, 3 weeks. And they had a meeting. Like, I had a gathering before. Staff sergeant comes up. He's the platoon leader. He says, look, do what you want. Try to avoid gaining weight. PT as much as you can while you're gone. This is for everybody. He says, whatever you do, don't come back married. What's the one thing that I did? I came back married. Because we were planning to get married after school was over. I get a phone call, frantic in the middle of the day. We can't get the date that we need. No one's going to marry us. And what are we going to do? Not knowing that this was a bipolar manic episode. She didn't know either. And me being the kind of guy I am, I'm like, well, let's get married today. You would? Sure. Let's get it done. Don't worry about it. We went to the Justice of the Peace, got the license, and got married. Not my smartest move. And then I come back, and she decides to move. So she's moving down, and I get an apartment off base, which was a smart move, I think, because there were some things in barracks life did not agree with me at all. She comes down, we move into an apartment. So now my free time is really free, which is really cool. And while I was there, again, I'm trying to compress this because there's like 4 years of stuff. We're only a year in, barely. And it ended up being where A lot of the PT I was doing, I would push really hard because I had something to prove. Because when I showed up and I got drunk that night, it kind of tainted me with some of the command. And the first run we did, I smelled of beer because I'd been drinking the night before. It was not a good showing, right? I took it upon myself to take this time to get, as they say, locked and cocked, to learn things that you need to know for the FMF Fleet Marine Force that no one really took the time to teach me. And that's where guys like Greg and some other people I knew kind of took me under their wing and said, okay, here's all the stuff you got to do. You know, here's how it really is. Here's what you need to worry about. Here's some tips and tricks. Information that other people weren't getting, you know. So it made me much more comfortable in my own skin as a Marine at that point, which was really useful. But because I was so gung-ho about it and I really wanted this, I would do dumb stuff. So we go on a run one morning that I wasn't supposed to go on because I'd had duty the night before. So overnight, I'm in the duty hut, checking people in, doing fire watch, security, all that stuff from like midnight to 7 a.m., 8 a.m. And when you do that, when you pull that watch, you are not supposed to do PT the next day. You're excused. You're supposed to be sleeping until at least 1300 or something. And I did go up to my room. And then someone came up and said, hey, aren't you supposed to be PT? And I'm like, well, I'm not. I'm like, you know what? Forget it. And I just put on my clothes and I went on no sleep. Okay. Go out there, do the thing. And then we go on the run. And there's no way to say this. Just before the halfway mark of 3 miles, I rolled my ankle hard, really hard. And I kept running. And they had the safety vehicle pull up behind me. They're like, D, get on here, get on here. No. Ran the whole way back. Come back, my ankle was this big. And that was the beginning of an injury that still haunts me to this day. I eventually had to get surgery because of it. And because that was healing, I had to run differently when I finally was able to run. And there was an Indian run we did a couple months later. What an Indian run is, if for those that don't know, you run in a straight line. And everyone's keeping pace. And then when you let off the call, the last person in the line sprints to the front, and then you do it again. Now, that's bad enough. We did it with a ditty bag full of sand. It's basically a heavy bag, but more dense, full of sand. And we were passing it with our trunks all the way back, and you'd sprint to the front with this thing and then pass it back. Well, I did it wrong, and I wrenched my back. And that was the beginning of the back problems that plague me to this day. So I kind of messed myself up because of pride. Don't do that to yourself, folks. Don't do that. Don't be a Jim, okay? And there's one more story I'm going to tell about this area before I'm going to shut up for a minute. And if you have follow-up questions, you can ask them, because then we're going to get into the actual nitty-gritty, which is totally different. Love this. So right after my wife gets down there, we start going out regularly on the weekends. Now, at this point, I was already going out on the weekends with the boys, but I was a little bit subdued. But because I had my own place, I had no one to report to, you know, if I wasn't on duty, I was going nuts. And these guys were robo-tripping. And for those of you who don't know what that is, you drink a bottle of Robitussin before you go out. And Robitussin, if you drink that much of it, you can almost start to hallucinate. It's a weird drunk. I never did it, but I watched them do it, and it was weird. It was really weird. It's kind of like what a whippet does to you, but for like 6 hours. And I don't recommend it. It was very dangerous, very stupid. It's not endorsed at all. It's bad for you. All right. I remember being really drunk and having to talk Greg. I'm getting a blowjob from some fat chick. I'm like, you don't want this, Greg. Oh, but come on, she's nice. I'm like, yeah, she's nice, but she also looks about 20 pounds lighter because of what you're drinking. And she goes, hey, I'm like, it's the truth. I've been drunk before. You're a nice girl, but no. Nah. One particular night, we go out, me and the boys plus the wife, and we're Amberbach and shots of whiskey and then snake bites and then shots of Jaeger. Lots of Jaeger. Oh my God. An absolutely abhorrent amount of liquor was consumed to the point where she and I got into an argument because she wanted to go home. I'm like, what? You're fine. She goes, you're not going to be able to walk home and I'm not leaving without you. And I'm like, well, I want to stay. Well, I don't want to stay. So we're leaving and you're coming. What, bitch? You know how it is. You get drunk and you get stupid. Finally, we go home arguing hardcore. And I slept on the couch because I was a bit of a jerk, to say the least. And we are awoken the next morning at 7 a.m. by the phone ringing, which never happens. Like, no one calls us. This is back when we still had landlines. Cell phones were just barely becoming a thing at this point. It's 2001, okay? Early 2001. This would have been like March. I answer the phone. This is a collect call from Tallahassee State Prison or Tallahassee City, County Jail. From Big Country. Will you accept the charges? Yes. D, I'm in trouble, man. D, you gotta help me out, man. What? Why am I getting a call from this? Rewind 36 hours earlier. I had forgotten about this. Greg in Big Country, we call him Big Country. His name is Sherman. We call him Big Country. They went to Tallahassee, which is a 4-hour drive away in Florida, to see Dying Fetus, the band, play with a couple other bands. Big Country's not into it, but he's always good for a good time. He agreed to drive. Greg was going with him. And the short version of what happened, they go to the show, and they had a case of beer in the truck. And rather than pay for drinks at the bar, they would just take turns going out to the truck and have a couple beers. One time, Sherman goes out to the truck, and someone walks up and says, hey, man, can you give me a ride home? And the short conversation ensues. He drives the guy home out of the goodness of his heart, or stupidity, a little bit of both. The guy says, come on in, hang out, come on. No, I got to get back to my friend. Oh, just come in for a minute. We got drinks and stuff. Drinks. So his stupid ass starts walking up, and he sees a bunch of gangy-bangy looking people, and they look like they're going to do something. And he runs out to the truck, floors it, starts running red lights, which is bad enough. And then he gets T-boned at an intersection with beer in the car, drunk as a skunk. He's like, well... And he just got out of the truck. He said, are you okay? Yeah. Are you okay? Yeah. And he just sat on the bed of his tailgate of his truck with a beer and just said, fuck it. And just drank a beer. Cops came and got him, and he was in jail. And we were the first people that actually answered the phone when he was trying to make a phone call. And I take that back. That is what happened. However, the person that called me was Greg. Because Greg couldn't find him. Calls me going, I don't know where Sherman's at. I've been sleeping on a sidewalk of a gas station, hiding from cops. We drive all the way out to Greg. We look and we call the different jails, find out which one he's at, and then we meet him and he tells the story. And they elect me to go in to hear the story. So I kind of fucked the story, guys. Sorry about that. But we drove 4 hours. And here's what's weird about it. We pick up Greg. We go to see Sherman. And I don't know why this decision was made. But Greg was going to stay down there. And then the other two other guys from their unit were going to come down with like a money order or something for his bail or something. But Greg opted to stay there. We come home to a message on our answering machine that they never got there. It took them like 3 round trips to finally gather everybody up and get them home. But this is the shenanigans you get in. It's just like college, only way more amped up. But I got a Dying Fetus shirt out of it. True story. Uh, it's true. Um, so then June of that year, I graduated with flying colors, and we went home again. She insisted on taking some leave because she was not adjusting well to military life. Made it a point she wanted to go home for a few weeks. A few weeks, she wanted to go home, and so we did. And then we moved down to Georgia for the one and only duty station I would have. But again, I slowed down a bit, lost my stride, was eating too much, was not PTing enough, kind of hit the reset button a little bit. But I got it back quickly enough, and we got down there and everything was fine, relatively speaking. And then I'm in the thick of it, and I'm like, all right. And then once again, waiting game happens. And there was like a 6-week waiting period for me to get into work. And I'm like, what is this? It's what they call hurry up and wait. I said that at least 7 times a day on the movie set. But this is, now you understand like why it invoked so much rage out of me. 'Cause I'm like, I just want to get to work. So do you have any questions about the pre-service stuff?
I'm muted. Sorry. Sorry about that, guys.
Okay.
I mean, right now, gosh, I mean, like I said, it feels like I've got a pretty good picture. I mean, yeah, there's so many. Yeah, there's a lot of stories. There's some good stories though.
And I have more. That's the thing. Although the second half of it, I would say, is much shorter with little highlights. Because basically we've got to go over 9/11, my divorce, which we won't really have to talk about, and then like how things progressed well otherwise. So I was there from I got there like July, I guess, and you're just getting into the new command, and you're learning the ropes. And the first few weeks you're in the building before they pick your shop, you're waxing floors. That's what you do. You clean and wax floors all day. Well, for like half the day or whatever. And finally get in, and they're like, all right, you're going to be doing this. And what I was doing was triangulating enemy locations based off of radio signals. And I was making sure they're still there, basically. It's targets we already knew, making sure they're still there, and trying to find something new. Very old school. Another shop my buddy worked in that I did a little bit of work on. We were taking recorded Morse operations from Russian subs. We had automated algorithms to decrypt this stuff because we knew all their algorithms. Spoilers. So you would just run them through the computer.
A lot of spoiler alerts in there.
So all this stuff that I had learned on how to manually decrypt stuff, I wasn't using. And then I go into this, direction finding thing, and it was boring. It was really boring stuff. So I did that for about 3.5 months because 9/11 hits. And I was working second shift at the time. So I would wake up around 10 a.m., get my breakfast, and then get ready to go to work. And my wife wakes me up. Says, Jim, you got to come see this. I'm like, what do you got to see this. And as I watch it happening, and my skin turned white, my jaw dropped, and I'm like, we're about to get busy. And I was in shock. I didn't even realize what I was looking at. Then we went to go, I had to go to work, and I knew that shit was going down. Command called up and said, hey, if at all possible, you'll want to leave at least an hour early for work because it's taking that long for people to get on base. Roger that. Sure enough, there was a line all the way out to the highway and shit. It took like an hour and a half to get on base. And I started conferring with different folks that were in the region. We were doing everything we could to prepare. We were trying to monitor everything we could. And I was trying to help as much as I could, but with what we were doing, it wasn't really relevant to what we were trying to achieve. And then I get a phone call one night. This guy named Terry Kalin, who's a gunnery sergeant at the time. He says, "Hey, I hear you're doing some really good things down there in the radio direction finding lab." I'm like, "Yeah." He says, "I could use a guy like you. Why don't you come down to my office?" And give me the office number. I'm like, "Sure thing, Guns." I go down there, and he says, we're piloting this technology, which, it's never been done before. And we're trying to track these terrorist cells through their cell phones. They have these wireless satellite phones that use GSM technology. We're doing all that, and we need someone to help collect everything and analyze it and get it to the right folks. You think you're up for it? I'm like, you bet. You got it. It was like basically a huge promotion. And when I took that job, the first thing he did was shove these in my face. These are the same headphones that I was given to do that job 19 years ago. I still use them to this day for everything. Streaming, recording, all of it. And I can't go into detail about how it was done, but me and one other guy, two other guys, one Army dude and one other Marine, we basically had to do this from scratch. We had to do baseline programming to automate certain things. We had to fine tune the programs we were using and also collect the data and disseminate it out and do all this stuff. But we were the first people to do it, to the point that we all went up to Fort Meade, the NSA, and taught other people how to do it. And then came back down, and the last 6 weeks of my service were us training 16 other people to do what we did, because we were all short timing it. But for about a year, there was only 3 people in the entire intelligence community that knew how to do what we were doing, because we built it from scratch. It's really cool. And again, without saying who or what operations, there were some pretty big operations that happened because of what we did. So it felt really good. It was like I came in here to do something, and when there's so many people that saw those towers go down and felt helpless, just like I did, but to be able to actually do something actionable and try to help was amazing. And I will always be thankful for that. But then towards the end of, you fast forward to 2003, I had gotten divorced in the early part of that year. And then later that year, I met the woman who would become my second wife. That was growing into what it was. So by, mid 2004, things were very, very different. Because in 2003, and I'll never forget this, it was the day that my ex-wife moved home. She left. And I went to the store, and they had TVs on the wall, and they showed us actually storming Baghdad. Give you an idea of the timeline, right? And a year later, we're still there. And I was like, what is this shit? And you look at what was going on in Afghanistan at the time, you're like, why are we still there? We still have people there. Fucking 17 years later, 16 years later. And I don't understand that. And it was this, I saw it coming from a mile away, and I didn't agree with it. Couple that with my back problems are getting worse. My ankle problems are getting worse. And in July of 2004, the commanding officer pulls me and he says, "Corporal, sit down." And I says, "Yeah." He says, "I don't know how to tell you this. I'm just going to tell you." He says, because of the way the rotation works, you're supposed to go into the FMF. You're supposed to go, in country. You're next to go when you sign on, when you re-up for your service. And I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "I can't sign off on it." I said, "What do you mean, sir?" He says, "You're broken." He says, "Your back is messed up. Your ankle is messed up. And if I send you out there, because I know you got a lot of heart and you're in really good shape, but one of those things are going to give out on you and you're going to get yourself or someone else killed. I can't do it. I said, well, what are my options, sir? He says, well, it's a significant enough injury that you can get a medical board, and that may qualify you for some disability and so forth, because this did happen while you were in the service and so forth. You can just wait out your term. And I says, he says, or you can eat your way out. I said, what do you mean, sir? He says, look, it's no secret that you've struggled with your weight throughout your Marine Corps career. I've already talked it over with command. The battalion command agrees with me. This is a raw deal for you. It's not your fault. He says, your weight tape is coming up in August. If you're overweight, I have the option to discharge you general under honorable conditions, which command would retroactively change to an honorable discharge. We agree that your service record is exemplary. We would do that for you because we don't want you to have to stay here knowing you can't stay here. I know I'm taking something away from you right now, and I want you to have the option. And I said, sir, given the fact that we've just trained up all these kids on everything, I feel that shop is secure. There's not a lot more for me to do at this command, and I would be leaving in September anyway to go somewhere else. And you're telling me I can't do that. I don't want to sit on my ass for 9 months with nothing to do. He says, I understand. That's why we're having this discussion. I says, so what you're saying, to put down the barbell, pick up the donuts? He goes, that's what I'm saying. He said, but don't go nuts. 1 pound over is enough. I said, yes, sir. And we shook hands and I walked out, and that's exactly what I did. I was 1 pound over, processed the discharge, took my remaining leave, and I moved to Chicago I got married right after I got out, and then we moved to Chicago. And that's where the music career kind of began. Because we moved to Chicago because we had friends out there in the scene. It all links together. Wow. And if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't have had the music career that I did, which we haven't even really discussed.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's the short version of those stories.
Man. What a story. Well, I mean, gosh, I know that you can't go into details on things, but I mean...
Well, if you have questions, I'll answer them the best I can.
Well, I mean, all I can say is, of course, thank you. I mean, I'm sure there's probably, American lives over there and over here that thank you for that. Because, I mean, it sounds like what you did... I don't know. I mean, I know that you can't go into the detail that, would probably make me understand it, because I'm just a moron in a bedroom. But yeah.
Okay, I'll explain it to you this way.
Okay.
If Al Qaeda were a human body, stuff that we didn't. So you start at the feet and you work your way up until you get to the head. Now, we didn't get the head until the Obama administration. Okay. But I would say that my operation was instrumental in finding the feet, then identifying the body, taking out the shins, the knees, the thighs. We gave the crotch to somebody else. That was a different area of operation. And we just slowly made our way up. And I would say that we probably got all the way up to like the chest, where we had taken out like half the heart of everything. And all that was left was like a little bit of the heart and then the head. And it took them that long to find him, which is the one regret that I have. Because I did look into doing some civilian contracting when I got out of the Marines. And the one job that I was offered was in DC. And the stuff that I was doing, I fundamentally disagreed with philosophically. You may remember there was a lot of hoopla about civilian contractors at that time and what they were doing, the way in which they were doing it. Okay. the best allegory I can give you would be the tone of like Blackbriar from the Bourne series. Okay. Where by any means necessary, we're going to get the mission done kind of thing. I don't work that way. I'm a fucking Marine. We have honor. We have integrity. We have courage. And those fucking cowards didn't have any of that shit. I don't care who you talk to. And I wouldn't do it. And I was offered a few contracts, short-term contracts along the way. And I did the math one day in 2005. And by that point, I had turned down collectively about $250,000 in contracts. Most of which, if I went over, was tax-free. So at any one time, I could have made 90,000 here, 80,000 here, and so forth. And I turned it all down because I just couldn't do it. I couldn't agree with it because we had gotten to a point where we didn't have any business being in Iraq anymore. And a lot of what we were doing in Afghanistan wasn't right. So I wouldn't do it. But it's that thing that weighs, you know? So when I had a choice, I opted not to do it.
Yeah. Man, I mean, I don't even. Gosh, I'd have to. It's kind of like to me, it's sort of like when I watch Cosmos with Carl Sagan, where there's sometimes he'll say something and you go, okay, I need to pause and I need to think about that for a week before I move on. And I did that when I was watching that show. I was like, there's some things that I just can't wrap my head around, and I need to think about that, which is probably why they aired it the way they did.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was just binging it. So, I mean, there's a lot here. I mean, there's a lot to unpack, and there's, like, right now, I'm just kind of like, I'm just thinking about what you've said, you know, and it's just like, wow. Oh man,
I've lived a lot of lives, dude.
Yeah,
you know, because the way I think about it in my life is that you've got childhood, and you've got high school, and then I've got what I call me getting my feet wet in the music industry. Like I didn't realize how many heavy hitters I met in the early days, and then I kind of stopped doing music, did the homeless thing, joined the Marines, and then the second phase of the career begins. I start playing drums again and everything else, which I technically started playing drums again in 2003, shortly after the split, because I could get a drum set and all that stuff. And it wasn't quite there. I mean, I was even jamming with folks then. So the current lead guitar player of Deicide had this band called Council of the Fallen in Myrtle Beach. He and I became friends through the zine I was doing, and he comes out, and I told him, I'll play for you, because he had lost these two drummers who were amazing drummers. And he come out and we jammed. I have videotape of it, and when the time came for him to do the tour, I was already out of the Marines and in Chicago, and he didn't know that. He thought I couldn't do it, and just didn't ask. I'm like, motherfucker, I would have gone. And the guy he got was not. I mean, I wasn't that great at the time. I still wasn't up to the speed where I eventually got to be. But the guy that got was even worse than me. And I was like, oh, man. But it kind of started there. And I get to Chicago and found work. And the first job that I got out of the Marines, I did military admissions for a university. Talk about a 180. Doing this desk job where I'm wearing a tie and getting people into college. But it was a good paying job with good benefits. And I formed a band within months, and those connections slowly moved into different stuff. Like the guitar player that we had in the first band that I formed, he went on and did Malevolent Creation for a couple years, which is a big death metal band. And then while I'm doing that, I had already met the guys that were then in cardiac arrest. I'd met them before that. Went to see them play, and I watched the drummer. He was a great drummer. I'm like, man, it's missing something. I think they need to take all these songs and shift the BPM about 10, 15 beats faster. Just a little bit faster. Not a lot, just a little bit. I'm like, man, I could play drums for these guys. Man, that'd be fuck. And I'm doing the Axiom thing, which was the band that I formed, which is like this Morbid Angel meets Dying Fetus kind of sound. I wrote all the lyrics, and it was very anti-establishment, like very punk rock, and that, but it was dead serious. And I was writing lyrics about Iraq and Afghanistan and terrorism and the Bush administration, and it was abstract, but you could read between the lines. You know, I was talking about like the separation of church and state and how they were blurring the lines at that time and all this stuff, going off with my lyrical dick. I was just coming all over the page. I was like, ah, and it was great stuff. We never got a really good recording of it, and that's one of my biggest musical regrets because there was some really solid music there. Marco left to join Malevolent. The band basically broke up after that. And during this time period, Cardiac had come to me and said, hey, man, our drummer left. We need someone to fill in until we find a permanent replacement. Would you do it? And I was working up to those shows. Axiom falls apart. And I said, can I just join permanently? They're like, yeah, sure. And that begins that whole thing. You know, one thing leads to the other, to the other, to the other. And I can't imagine like life any other way. There are certainly some things I would like to have done differently, or things I would like to have worked out differently. But things work out exactly the way they were supposed to. Because I've had a very, for lack of a better word, blessed life in that sense. I've gotten to experience all this cool stuff, you know. And throughout all of this, I was a huge video game guy. So, which is what a lot of people know me for now. So it all kind of, everything has this weird kind of conglomeration. Gorath in chat says, lyrical dick is now part of my lexicon. Dude, take it. It's yours. I just made it up on the spot. So you can have it. I'm probably not going to use it again.
Well, okay. So your music.
Yeah.
When you get down to it, like how you got into like these I mean, I guess like teaching drums? I mean, is that how you got into that? Is from this other band?
You mean like
you seeing their opportunities, I guess.
You mean, is that how I started doing like the YouTube videos I did years later?
Yeah. Or was it just an idea that kind of gestated there? You know what I mean?
I can actually tell you exactly how it happened. So we'll just get into it then, because this all leads together. So getting a Cardiac, I do the first few shows, and the first 3 shows that I did, I have video of all of them, and they were great shows. And the first gig was opening up for this band that come up from Mexico, this band called Mortem, who in the deep, deep, dark underground are like really well regarded. They're like the Mexican version of the band Death, which is much bigger in the grand scheme of things. But Mortem was right there with them. And they come up to do the show. So the people that are there are the diehards of the diehards, mostly older school folks, people my age and stuff, and a few kids and stuff, but mainly just people who are really heavily invested in death metal. So it's really cool. And we go up there, and people had seen Cardiac before. They'd never seen it like this. So like the first tune on the first the demo that we had, well, this EP that had been put out before I joined, it started off bum 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 bum. It's a good tune. We go up there, ba 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 ba, and this blast beat's like, and they were like, and people, you hear on the video, like people go, holy shit, because it was like a completely different beast. Like, well, I just took the whole thing and just injected it with grindcore and speed and energy and just piss. And people went nuts. You could see people like falling over each other and shit. And then halfway through, the guys from the band that we were supporting, they came out and they were losing their shit, banging their heads and their fists, and they're going, yeah. And from that day, for as long as I can remember, every so often I'll get a email or a note from one of the guys from that band saying, dude, you fucking, they really dug what we were doing. And that was my first show with them. And then we kept getting better and getting better. And we eventually needed a second guitar player. And one of those first handful of gigs, we opened for a band called Severed, which is I hadn't heard of them before. Very kind of like crust punk, old school death metal blended together. Lots of D beats and just punk attitude and horror gore vibe, right? And the guitar player's name was Tom. His name still is Tom, by the way. And he was doing these really gruff, barky vocals. Oh my God! And he had like this almost flat top, slick back hair. He looked like he had a pretty solid day job, but he was just going off. And I went to Adam. I went, if we ever get a second guitar player, I want that guy. He goes, dude, that would be awesome, right? I don't know. He's like from Rockford, which is like a 40-mile difference or whatever. He says, dude, that would be amazing. And we didn't think anything of it. 6 months later, my old bass player from Axiom is now in the band because the old bass player lost interest and just left. So now I got him back. And then immediately, because he likes to tool with stuff, he goes, man, we really need to get a second guitar player. And he kept harping on it and just kept beating us into it. And he wanted the original guitar player from the band from Cardiac that recorded the demo with Adam. His name was Johnny. But Johnny had 2 other bands he was doing at the time. And what I found out later, he really didn't want to be associated with that style of music anymore. He was doing the much more technical stuff. And I guess him and Adam had kind of a beef, and he was starting not to like me too much, apparently. We later patched all that up. Inner scene drama. It's stupid. It's like a big high school, okay? But Johnny came and tried out, and it was cool, and it sounded nice, but they didn't quite click for whatever reason, which was much to Johnny's pleasure because he didn't want to disappoint us because he knew he could do the job, but I don't think his heart was in it. And I had this whole time been pushing really hard for Tom. And Adam was into it. Dave was like, man, I don't know. He's like a year older than you, and he's been in the scene, and he's going to come up with all these ideas. And I'm like, that's why we need him. Finally, Tom answers the ad that we had put, and he said, I'm interested. And we were thinking the same thing. He comes up, plays, perfect blend. The guitar tones melded, the styles were perfectly intermeshed, where it's not the same, but they fit together. Band just blew up at that point. It was like love fest at that point. It was amazing. Every show was just awesome. And we record the record. And when we go in to do the record, my ankle was starting to give me problems again. I'd rolled it a couple times over the last 2 years. Because, when you're playing drums, you're taking your foot and you're shoving it at high velocity into a steel plate at 200 to 300 beats per minute for hours at a time. Of course your ankle's going to get mad. So I knew I was having problems, and I started noticing it more and more. And so we go in to record the first record. I do the drum tracks. 13 songs in 6 hours. I don't recommend that. Ankle problem or no. That is too much to expect of your feet, man, and your whole body and everything else. Plus, your performance starts to slack a bit, and I can hear it on the record even to this day, like certain parts where I'm like, ugh. But it was good. It was still good. We take all the drums out in the very last load of drums, and I come down off the step. My ankle rolls completely 90 degrees, and my whole body weight leans into it and smacks on the wood. Drums go one way, I go the other. I can feel it starting to swell up. And I drove home an hour and a half like that. And then it happened again like a week and a half later. Worse. On the way home from a restaurant, we stop at a convenience store or something to get a 6-pack of beer. And We come out, and for some reason, I'm walking along the edge of the curb of the sidewalk, which had a drop off of about like that. Okay. You see where this is going. I roll the ankle, and my foot slips off the side, goes on a full foot. All of my body weight at that point, which is about 280, 290 pounds, hits on the side of my ankle, which my podiatrist says is the point to where the ligament snapped. Like, gone.
Yeah, mine's gone
and
too. On my right.
Yeah.
My right ankle.
And I hopped my way to the car, got in. Wife says, "Do you need anything?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I hold up the six pack. I'm like, "Another one of these." She goes, "I'll be right back." She went and got more beer. I have pictures from that night of me holding. She didn't have any more six packs, so she got me like 2 or 3 of the big 24 ounces. So I'm like holding it like a sippy cup, and I'm like, because I was in a bad place physically. And she's like, "You have to go to a doctor. Like, you're not going to be able to keep playing drums if you don't do something. You can barely walk with this." So I went to a podiatrist. He analyzed it. He's like, "Yeah, it's gone." So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do physical therapy to try and minimize the scar tissue as much as we can. And then we're going to get you in for surgery. And so right after, so I'd already done the drum tracks. Thank fuck they were done. So we were finished the album, and right after we finished the record, I go in for surgery, and it was a outpatient therapy. You go in there, you do it, you get you out of anesthesia and everything else. What they did was they cut open the inside, replaced the ligament with like a synthetic version of it, and then they put a drill through the top of my foot, like where it meets here, to get all this cartilage and like extra cartilage and scar tissue out of there. And then they put me in a cast. The cast had to stay on for like, I want to say 8 or 9 weeks. And then I went into a boot. So my total downtime was like 3+ months. And I went on long-term disability for it. And so I was home from work and all this stuff and slowly healing and all this stuff. And but then when I still was practicing with the band once I got the boot on. Once the cast came off and the boot went on, I practiced with the band, but I would only use one foot. Okay. And so it fundamentally changed my style because there was stuff that I was leaning into my left foot to play. Like any of the Slayer beats, like the ducka, 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 I would use my left foot. I had done that since high school. Well, now I couldn't do that. So I started doing it with my right foot. Because I was like, well, if it doesn't work, I'll still have this one foot and I can do it. And after like a month and a half, 2 months of that, finally the boot comes off, and then I'm cleared to play. I'm doing physical therapy the whole time to get it better. And the moment of truth came. And we played. I was like, let's just jump right in. I said, let's play this song. It has the most double kick in it, and we'll see if I can pull it off. It'll give me an idea of where I'm at. I played that song better than it had ever been played before. Just and I'm just sitting there going, and I'm just watching my legs like they're not my legs, and they're all like, all right, because they were scared that I was going to have to leave the band. That's what they were worried about. And that squashed all of that shit, right? So, but that's how it kind of links in with the injuries and all that stuff, you see. And it actually made me a better drummer because of it, right? There was a reason I was telling this part of the story. What was the original question?
How did you get into the drumming, or as far as the teaching?
Yeah, so during my recovery, because I was home all the time, I was on the internet a lot. And one of the drummers that I had replaced in Council of the Fallen was a guy named Derek Roddy, who's been in bands like death metal fans will know, Nile, Hate Eternal, and a bunch of other bands. The list goes on. And he had a forum for teaching and learning drums and tricks and all this stuff. And I became a very active member of that forum. People saw some video of me online and they're like, holy shit, dude, your blast technique, which is the left-hand snare. They're like, that's really good. And they're like, can you show me how this is done? I said, I'll try. So I got out our only digital camera. which was a Kodak digital camera, and I took a video, and I just was just talking in a room, and I was trying to like just explain the concept of it, and that was the first YouTube video that I ever put up. It was in 2006, and then a couple years later, I redid that video, and I did a second one with the same camera on the drum set, but the mic was blown out, and so 2 years later, I redid that in a much more polished fashion with different camera angles and stuff. But yeah, I would say that's where it started. Because I would take a camera everywhere I went with the band. I would record every show. I'd record shenanigans and all this stuff because I was a big fan of like the Pantera home videos and Metallica home videos and what have you. And I wanted to eventually do something like that for us. I still have most of, if not all, that footage. May or may not pop up on something later. Yeah.
I want to see that. I want to see some of that stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, come down one of these days, man. We'll hook it up, man. I got a bunch of it on the hard drive right now. But yeah, and there's some fun times that will never be released that I'll show you. Man, not that kind. Sickos.
Hey.
I know. I get it. But like, that's where that started. And because people saw what I was doing and they wanted to know how I did it. And they wanted to see a different perspective. Because a lot of these cats were, at that point with drumming, there was this huge emphasis on being the fastest and most precise. I came in with I want to be as fast as I can and not lose an ounce of power. And I think that's part of what set me apart from my peers. I didn't have the interest in being the fastest. I want to take natural ability, have as much power as I can, and take that as fast as it can go. And also be as musical as I can be. You know, filling in those little gaps with the drums, like instead of going bop, bop, pop, 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 but like pop, 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 pop. You know, like filling stuff in there, little ding-a-dings and little fills and stuff in non-traditional ways. Because I wasn't really good on my top half with tom rolls, and I wasn't the fastest with my kicks. But I was great with your basic beats, and I was powerful, and I was fast. And so I wanted to take what I could do, exploit it, and be creative. People picked up on that, and they wanted to learn how I did it. And that's how that started.
That's awesome. And then at what point did you say, okay, what is this other thing that I want to do? These reviews. You showed me that ruled productions, and it looks like it's like a group of you. Mm-hmm. Now there's so many different ways, or so many different articles on there. Like, yeah. How did it start? Like, was it like, yeah, go ahead.
So it all links together. I've done a few YouTube videos with the drums and all that stuff. Fast forward, second record gets recorded, third record gets recorded. That record we shopped for a year, and got on a larger label. Someone that I had met way back in the Pittsburgh days, a band called Incantation. They had gotten really big, and he had started a label, and his wife was someone I was in a band with called Funerus. And Tom knew him from way back when. So like the friendship was there. And we'd done a few miniature tours with them because they recognized us in Chicago as one of the big bands there. Signed with them, and we do all these big tours and all this really cool stuff that in itself could be an entire podcast or a documentary about. And by the time we got around to recording the fourth record, I had I'd gotten dissatisfied with the status quo of my career at that point. I was sick of going out on the road, being broke all the time, coming home in debt, not even like breaking even. The business would break even, but I would come home in debt. And I was sick of that. Combine that with, I was seeing more and more misogyny and bigotry and racism, like rearing its head. The further we went, the more bigotry I saw. And I'm like, I can't be associated with this shit. And between those two things, I'm like, I gotta go. And I announced my intentions to leave. We'd made some plans to slowly cycle me out, but finances and a lack of work opportunity forced me out earlier than I expected. I made the move to Iowa because I wanted to be as far away tonally from what I was doing. Iowa definitely provided that. Very quiet. And I get a job almost immediately. I was working for GoDaddy, and I was doing hosting and server support there. And the first day I walk in for training, now by this point, I had lost a lot of weight because I'd started being a vegetarian. I dropped 65 pounds in a short space of time. We didn't do any live shows for like 9 months before I left. Okay. No one had seen me. I used to have the flat top and a goatee that would go down like that. I grew in this, shortened the beard up so I had almost like an Amish beard going. And then I shaved the mustache off and I let the top of my hair grow out like it is now. So it was hair like this with like a chin strap. So I looked very different. I was noticeably lighter, with a completely different look. I walk into training on the first day. I get 1 foot into the training room. This dude goes, "Dude, you're Grindhead Jim from cardiac arrest." And I'm like, motherfucker. What? Like, I'm trying to hide. And so it just it was an interesting lesson to me that once you've put yourself in the public eye, there's really not any going back to a certain degree. So I made a decision at that point to just live very publicly and just say, fuck it. Like, I don't care. That was a big thing for me. So I do that job for a little over a year, and they did some restructuring to the point where they couldn't promote me because of policies within the company. At the time, it was still legal to base promotions on a credit rating. My credit rating was destroyed at that point. They could not promote me, and they would not demote me. They said, "We got to let you go." I'm like, well, that's shitty. I respect it, but it's shitty. So I left and I cashed out my 401k, and I had some money to live on for a few months. And I started watching a lot of Angry Video Game Nerd and Nostalgia Critic to comfort myself. Tons of it. And it started with me looking at James and going, man, I'm sick of watching him. I want to play these things. So I started binge buying retro stuff. And I was getting all these games. I was making cases. For a while there, I was actually making a partial income off making these custom game cases for like NES and SNES and stuff. And that's a whole other story too. And all this time I'm watching like Nostalgia Critic and stuff like that, like these movie reviews. And there was this whole culture on YouTube around like, you know, satiric movie reviews and skits and all this stuff. And I really dug it. And I got the idea. I'm like, I could do that. I'm funny-ish. And so I started filming them. And I did Transformers the movie. I did The Vindicator. I did Flash Gordon, A View to a Kill, a bunch of movies. And just like with the Derek Roddy drumming forum before it, there's this forum on That Guy with the Glasses, which is where the Nostalgia Critic is housed, was anyway. And I started making friends with all these different creators, and there were a couple of them that stood out to me. One guy's name was Network Next TV. He's a very young black fella who's really heavy into comics, more than anyone I ever met in my life. And he had a really interesting, snide, kind of satiric, like he's way more cynical than anyone his age has the right to be, but yet somehow you bought it. Like you have no life experience really, but how can you be this mad? Like, and that's me saying that. But he was compelling. He was a great writer. He had some cool ideas. And I'm like, I have the site, and I didn't originally think of it as like an aggregate or a group thing. But would you like to contribute to this site? We can build something together. He says, yeah, I'm in, dude. I love your stuff. He comes in, and at the same time, I was talking to this guy named Thomas Fireheart, who still comes into my streams to this day. Still a great guy from Australia. Redheaded guy in Australia talking about wrestling. That was his big thing at the time, was wrestling. And I was like, this is cool. I'd never heard of this, but this is cool. He was reviewing wrestling events the same way people were reviewing movies at that time, which there was only like 3 people doing it at the time. And to me, he was the best one at that point. He came on board. I grabbed this guy named Skeletroy. He had a show called Advertainment, where he would satirize advertisements in comic books and made a whole show, a variety show out of it. And it was really well done. Again, very unique in the space. He's Canadian. He says right on all the time. Great dude. Bring him in. Still friends to this day. And as a matter of fact, he does 16-bit remixes of metal songs on his YouTube channel. That's his big thing now. He's done like hundreds of them, and they're amazing. Check him out, Skeletroy. And during all of this, we're like, this is a bit of a sausage party. So I started scouring. I'm just looking for something else. And I knew I wanted it not to have a penis, basically. It's a true story. And I find this young lady doing reviews of the Doctor Who comic book at that time. And once again, she had a fresh voice. She was funny, and she had good editing chops. And I says, look, I was dead honest. I'm like, I think you're really talented, and I would ask you to come on the channel regardless, but it's a huge bonus that you don't have a penis, because we have a bunch of guys over here we'd like to diversify. Would you be interested? Yeah. She comes in, and this is something Gareth Hyun is going to really dig this next part. That woman, Samantha Maybe, is Beard Grizzly's sister. That is how I met Beard Grizzly, one of the top lore guys in the Destiny community to this day. It's one of the top 3. I met him through his sister 8 years ago because I was looking for a female comic book reviewer. And that formed the original core group of people. We were constantly doing videos, and we were mostly uploading to what was then Blip, which was a YouTube alternative that was a lot more lax on the DMCA, so you could include movie clips and stuff and not get taken down. And the monetization wasn't bad. And it was going strong for a while. And then Blip went under, and we were trying to move all of our stuff over to YouTube, and it was getting flagged left and right. And I was so sick of it. And this is the same year that the PS4 and the Xbox One were supposed to come out. As it would happen, Grant, a.k.a. Beard Grizzly, and Troy, Skeletroy, were already doing a video game podcast. They brought me on to the podcast as a third guy because I had a different perspective from them. We were doing this show, and we did this long show about E3 that year. And I had, right before E3, right at E3 when Xbox did their thing, and there was a big hubbub about their digital rights management policies for the games. You may remember there was a big deal about that. You weren't going to be able to resell games and all this stuff. It was really shitty. And I said, guys, if this is where the industry is going, I might be done with video games, dude. I might be done. And then Sony's thing came out. And I had decided to start drinking for this thing. So I was like, this is the end, guys. Sony's going to say the same thing. This is the end of video games. I'm telling you. And I start drinking. By the end of that thing, I was laughing. I was crying. I'm like, it's not dead. It's not over. We're going to be fine. And then Microsoft rolled back all that stupid shit. And in the interim, yet another forum enters our story, ladies and gentlemen. I was so amped for the PlayStation 4 because Sony was really, at the time, they seemed to really understand what we needed at that time. And I stand by that. I went out the next day after that E3 presentation, and I grabbed my Xbox 360, and I grabbed 50-some games I had on my shelf, which, if Billy is still listening, he's going to cringe. I traded all of it in. All of it. Every last shred of it. And I got a comparable PlayStation 3 in about 8 or 9 games, a year subscription to PlayStation Plus, which by the end of that year would replace most of the games I had lost digitally, mind you. I put down $150 on a PS4 I got an extra controller out of it. It's a pretty good trade, all things considered. And then I joined the Sony forums, and we started talking about the PS4, and everyone was getting really hyped about it. I eventually became a really trusted member of that community. I became what's called a PlayStation MVP, which would later give me opportunities to go to E3 on Sony's dime and so forth. Some cool things. And I joined that. I had long abandoned the Grindhead Jim moniker when I started doing the That Ruled stuff, because I didn't want to ride the coattails of a musical career. However, turns out name recognition is kind of important. And I kind of said, I'm done running away from this identity of who I was. I was running away from the industry, not myself. And I grew back the beard. And I had joined this forum as Grindhead Jim. I was consciously making the decision to reintegrate the whole of myself into one person. And PlayStation 4 comes out. I love it. And it has streaming built into it. And I started dabbling. And by March of 2014, because they did come out in 2013, I was hooked. I bought a PC, started streaming regularly. And that begins the most recent phase of where most people that are going to listen to this are going to know me from. That's how it. But you see how it all just interlinks together so seamlessly. Like, you can't take any one part of my history out and have anything make sense, in my opinion.
It is nice to know the through line, because I've heard bits.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm enjoying this more, probably, well, maybe not more than the people watching, but I'm definitely enjoying seeing the path. And again, I think this might be terrible for the interview, but it's going to take me some time to come up with, okay, now wait a minute, you said this, what did you mean by, you know what I mean? So
yeah, well, the next time you have me on, you'll have, I'm down, dude. I'll come on as many times as you want. I don't give a shit. I will talk to you about this stuff, because for one thing, it brings me joy to talk about this stuff, because it brings up mostly good memories. And it's always been important for me for people to understand that I'm not just the guy that wears death metal shirts, makes funny voices, and plays a lot of Destiny.
You do funny voices?
Yeah, a little bit.
I was just going to see if I can get one.
Yeah, I'll give you many voices as you like. Open up, big boy. I'll sit there and go off on it and stuff. But the thing is, he's referring. I used to do that on set constantly. I was always trying to make somebody laugh. I was trying to have fun. We were already having fun, but I was
giving you so much crap, and I feel so bad about it, because it was one of those things where it's like I'm an honest guy. I'm kind of a
You're not funny, Jim. I know.
No. It was one thing that I remember saying to you that afterward, I think I told you about this, that I felt bad about it because I didn't realize how it came across to everybody else. I had the idea that you got where I was heading, but other people heard it and they commented on it after you were gone. Like, holy crap, dude. Like, you were hardcore. And I'm like, what did I say? And then when they repeated it back to me, I was like, oh, that probably sounds really, really harsh.
What was it?
Okay, so this is...
I don't remember this, I don't think.
Okay, you remember the day with the ice cream?
Oh, yeah. So it was the second day I was on set.
Okay, so we're sitting there, and... hold on a second. I'm just trying to sync you up again. But anyway, it's the second day on set that you're on set.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember exactly what you said, but this is what was said to me. Or repeated back to me that I said. I said, dude, do you need validation for every joke you tell? I was just kidding around. But I remember I am pretty sure I came to you like maybe a day, 2 days later, and I was like, okay, dude, I was just playing around, and you were like, oh yeah, of course, yeah, you were just busting balls. It's no big deal. But in my mind, I was like, crap, I didn't mean it to sound that mean or that like.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think that like just like with the cast being surrounded by like hardened crew, that
Right.
kind of dichotomy we talked about, me coming in, being a new friend, being told like you're we're all friends here, kind of slowly being brought in like that way. I was on eggshells a lot because I didn't want to overstep the bounds of friendship and stuff with all these different people that have known each other for so long. I wanted to be very outwardly conscious of the fact that I was not just one of the guys at this point. And I'd like to think that I've gotten there.
Oh yeah.
But I was very aware of it. And I knew that ball busting was coming because I know that's how you haze people when you get into a friend group. I know this. I've done it myself. So that's how I took it at the time. But the thing what was cool about it was that you're right. I do. I like to get a laugh out of every fucking joke I tell. That's the point of telling jokes, bitch. This is for. And that's probably what I should have said back if I didn't. I should have said, well, isn't that what jokes are for? Getting laughter, you fuck?
Yeah,
like,
but no, I think you were very... Because the thing is, I didn't come to you, kidding around and being all, hey, I was kidding, right? No, I was actually concerned because what I didn't want... Because then I started thinking, and this is going to be one of these things that
sure.
I'm thinking also in terms of the movie,
right?
In terms of the interplay between characters, but I'm also actually concerned that I hurt your feelings, and I did not want to do that because it's the one thing that I didn't want to happen to me. Know what I'm saying? So I actually came to you with a concerned, man, you realize I was just kidding, right? It wasn't like, you know what I'm saying? So you were very, oh yeah. And I said, okay. I just wanted to make sure because, and then everybody kept saying that crap to me too. I remember,
really?
Tori, which, she was only on set for what, a week?
Yeah. Little finger. She was a PA, right?
Yeah. Yes. But
Yeah.
she kept saying that to me. She goes, I'm kidding, right? And I'm like, yeah, it's no big deal. She goes, okay.
The first day she almost got me, and then I realized on that next day, the day that the incident occurred, right? She was in AC.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting all my acronyms confused, Billy. I'm sorry.
What did you say?
I said PA, production assistant.
Oh, right. Yeah, AC. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Anytime someone says AC, first thing I think of is anal cunt, and then I think of air conditioner. So like, I don't even know what it means in the movie world, but she was neither of the things that I referenced. Yeah, that's right. Okay, sorry.
Second.
Now, so the first day at the end of shooting, or towards the end of, it wasn't your face. She was just very selective about the conversation she was having, I think.
And you intimidated her because you were the director, Billy.
Oh, dude, definitely, Billy. If someone comes in not knowing you at all, you're an intense person to begin with, and then on set, you were fucking intense, bro. And that's not a negative thing. I respected the shit out of that. I loved it. I was a great way to work, honestly. I only worried about your stress level.
That's what to me, that's what it was more than anything that I was concerned about.
Absolutely.
So
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like I said, I've known Billy a long time, and I know that, a lot of what you see on Game Chasers is Billy. Right. And but then sometimes it's Billy turned up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we were doing our, location scouting and stuff that we were doing in the months prior,
mm-hmm.
he jumped in between. I mean, gosh, Billy, we were doing some sort of like northeastern voices for seriously like 2 hours, and we're just back and forth just riffing, you know what I mean? But then he would get really serious, and so I would, okay, it's time for him to be serious, and he's having a conversation with somebody on the phone, and I'm like, I'm I'm over here and I'm looking out the window and whatever.
I'm over here.
Yeah, but it was just
We're in the car. He's on the phone.
That's what we were doing. But I can't remember exactly what we were talking about. But it was hilarious. It was funny. But I knew that there was okay, we're just killing time here, and then there was okay, now it's work time. But then, dude, on set, and we talked about this when he was on. It was.
Can I use your yard?
Yeah. Oh yeah, dude. It was really funny. But he was more intense than I think I've ever seen him. Or at least, again, we'd spent a lot of years apart.
And even coming into this new to everybody, because of the series, I had a pretty good handle on who Billy was. And I could tell even from the audition going into the film, I could see where that was happening. It was really a thing. So Billy, yes, on set, you had the potential to be intimidating to people who are susceptible to not necessarily susceptible to intimidation. I don't want to say that about her, but just for someone that doesn't know you at all, doesn't know you from Adam, and coupled with the fact that you were the director of the film, and she was essentially your employee.
Right.
Of course, there was a certain degree of I gotta keep my mouth shut kind of thing, which I understood. But I recognized that she was not super social, and I naturally like to bring people out of their shells. Like that's part of what I do with humor. Right. It's a big part of my personality. I like to make people feel comfortable and welcome. That's kind of my thing. One of my many things, as we're learning, as we're finding. And so I was talking to somebody, might have been Jay, might even been you, but we were inside the restaurant for the lower half toward the end of the first day. And we were yip yapping and having a laugh. Like I bumped some. I don't know if I hurt something that day. I think I hurt my ankle or something. Something I had bumped or whatever. Something. And she goes, "Well, I'm sure you just vaped that away, right? Vape Nation, right?" And I was just like, "I'm like, Kitty has claws. Holy shit!" I was like, "Yeah, Vape Nation." But I wasn't sure if she was joking. It was because it was such a deadpan delivery.
She was just that kind of person. That's her delivery. But go ahead.
Really cool. But then I came back on that Wednesday and I talked to her for a bit, and she was pulling the same stuff, but it was much more evident she was being jokey.
Yeah.
And I dug her presence on the set. So when she eventually left for whatever reason, I don't really know. I mean, maybe I do, but I'm not saying anything. But she left, and it definitely sucked for a bit because that was definitely a cool. Like her personal vibe was really cool, I think. And then we had other people come on as ACs and so forth, and they were all great. But I do feel that she kind of filled a little niche personality that we never really quite got back on set. Yeah. It was a cool thing. I would have been interesting to see how that evolved over time. But stuff like that happens on a movie set and with any other job that you do. You get attached to people, then they go away. It's a thing. Whatever. It's fine.
Well, I will tell a little bit of a story. And I don't think this will get anybody in trouble because the movie's done.
That's true.
But yeah, she called me on that last night. And she said, "Look, I just want to let you know that, I hope that you never took anything that I said, seriously and all that." And I'm like, "Look, we had this conversation," because I had no idea what had transpired. So she was calling to say goodbye, but I didn't realize that. I just thought, whatever. And she said, "I think you're doing a great job, and you just need to keep doing what you're doing." And I'm like, "I really appreciate that. Why are you telling me this?" You know what I mean? It's like, I appreciate this. Everybody, enjoys an attaboy every now and then. But why? Sure. Why are you telling me this now?
Why is this a thing?
Aren't we going to be on set in like 12 hours? What's the deal? So yeah. So whatever opinion I might have had prior, which by that time we had formed that that camaraderie because we were working hand in hand.
Right.
But at that point, it was just like, oh man. I mean, even though it was like I totally get, how people say, oh, she's standoffish. She doesn't meld well with the crew. I'm like, that's really just her personality. And she kind of comes off as standoffish, but she's really not. She's actually really friendly. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like those people that kind of, they're insulting you or, just giving you crap, but there's a little bit of sweetness to it.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's like they're busting your balls and then they're like rubbing some salve on it afterwards. Like, I'm sorry about your balls, man.
Yeah, it's I don't know what it is, but it was like I said, I actually was appreciating her being around. And then of course, what happened and we moved on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was something that I didn't really understand until Leon brought it up, was that it's separation of church and state, right? Crew's over here, Cass is over here. And then even within the crew, there's hierarchies. You don't, if you're this guy, you don't talk to that guy. You don't talk to this guy over here because, he's got his own thing going on. And we never really got that. We never really understood it. And I'm talking about Billy, Jay, me.
Yeah.
Anybody on and even the cast. We didn't understand that there was, because it was kind of like, at least from my point of view, it was like, okay, these cast guys are really, I really think they're funny and I really want to hang out and listen to what they're saying because it's fun. But technically I'm part of these guys, but they don't know me and this is my first time. It was just so weird to navigate because I think every single person on set had their own kind of, I don't know, it's like the navigating politics kind of thing, you know?
I've always been a kind of guy, whether it was in music or in, content creation or in the Marines or any job. I've always been kind of a tribe hopper, if you will. I like to be
of walls.
Yeah, I like to be in the middle and draw everyone into the circle. I like to do that a lot. And I know I wasn't the only person doing that on set, but it was evident by the very first day, because Leon didn't have a lot to do. We talked for a long time. It's how I first got to know him. And he told me oh yeah, this is how it's supposed to go. I'm like, well, fuck that. We're friends, man. And I want to make friends with every motherfucker on here. And I did my best to get to know everyone as much as I could. And I had at least one private joke of some kind that would recur with every single person on the crew if I could help it. I made it a point to talk to everybody at least once every single day, because to me, that's how these small productions, these indie things get done, because it reminded me of my time when I was touring with the band and you had to rely on each other for all kinds of stuff. And there were things that you weren't supposed to have to do, but you would step in because it's got to get done, and the movie brought back in a very positive way those feelings. It was such a validating experience to bring the story around. It really was a validating thing for me to be involved with something really fucking cool, and for people to get my humor and laugh at my jokes and everything else. It was really cool.
It's really strange because it was only 17 days, but but then there's that family kind of, it's almost like when you're, to me, it reminds
me of boot camp, because you have to get through this thing and you all have this shared experience that only this many people are ever going to be able to say they got to fucking do. And it's like anything else, any other experience you have, there are emotions attached to it. And when there's a lot of hard work and emotions being thrown around, that is going to burn into your brain. It is a neurological fact, and I have a book about it that I can lend you when I get it out of storage. That shows that's why certain memories are so much more intense than others, because there are things that almost literally burn it into your brain pathways. And things like this are the epitome of that.
Tabula rasa, right?
Absolutely.
Making that
look at the big
mark.
Brain on Rob. That's right, the metric system.
Yeah, no, that's I'm well, I took it's one of the only classes that I did well in college was philosophy. So
There you go.
yeah, in one semester I took philosophy, sociology, and psychology. So
My
after that
bachelor's
semester,
degree is-
oh, what?
my bachelor's degree is in organizational psychology.
Well,
which
I'll
is
just tell you, for a 20-year-old to take those 3 classes in the same
Stupid.
semester, I became the most annoying son of a bitch
Oh
by the
yeah,
end of that.
because now you know everything and you can predict everyone's
Oh, yeah.
behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what's weird is I strangely can. It's creepy. I have like a spider sense now.
Oh yeah,
But
and that's part of how I got to be that guy that would bring tribes together, because I can look at groups of people and know how things are going to move. I can recognize the clicks when they're happening and try to pull everyone, because organizational psychology is about understanding patterns of behavior and managing change within a group looking to accomplish something. And I tell you something, that helped me out in bands. It helped me out with the website. It helped me out on the set of the movie and every job I've had ever since. Even if I didn't use it specifically to help those projects, it helped me navigate things.
oh yeah, you
when
got
I
to
left
become
the
Winnie the
band-
Pooh, right?
Yeah, when I left the band, I knew ahead of time I was leaving. So I called up this guy. I saw someone years prior, and I watched his performance, and I said, if I ever leave cardiac, that's the guy that I want to replace me, because he reminds me of me at that age. He's got the passion, he's got the skill, and his feet are way faster than me. That's what they're going to need to get to the next step. Sure as shit, a couple years later, he and I reconnected, and I said, look, man, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm looking to leave cardiac. It's going to be 6 months to a year before I do it, but I want to start grooming you for this. And I would teach him the drum parts and but while I was doing that, I was slowly teaching him how to navigate the band as a family. I'm like, here's what you can expect. When this kind of thing happens, this is how Adam, Tom, and Dave are going to react. Here's what they argue about. Here's where they're coming from. Here's musically where they're at. And I taught him everything I could so that he could recognize, he would feel less intimidated or confused by the behavior of the guys around him. And when I left, I presented him. I'm like, this is the guy. And they're like, it's not the guy. Like, we get to pick who your successor is, not you. I'm like, okay, you try whoever you want, but I'm telling you, this is the guy. They tried out one other guy, tried him out. He's been in the band longer than I ever was. Just saying, I was right. Ha. But the thing is, he took something that was more or less handed to him and made it his own, and has done an amazing job with that band. And Nick, if by some odd chance you're listening to this, dude, hats off. You did an amazing job with the band, and I'm so fucking proud of you, dude.
There you go. Nah, I don't know. I didn't know. I was like, I don't know. I don't know who that guy is. Hi. But no, it's really kind of cool though when you think about it. That to me, it's like I think that's why Billy, Jay, and I, and some other people from the Blockbuster days, it's why we formed. I don't know who we really rallied around. I don't think there was a leader. It was just, I mean, I just remembered that when I was, because Billy and Jay were both CSMs. I don't even remember what we were called. But I was usually the manager running the shift. And I just said, we all work together. I'm never going to ask you to do something that I wouldn't do myself, but just do your stuff and we'll have a great time. But I mean, when it's time to work and it's time to get the stuff done, let's get it done. Let's get out of here or whatever. And we just formed that friendship, and it felt very similar. It felt, I mean, honestly, those nights out there or days out there on set felt like I was back at work at Blockbuster, and we were all doing a job and we all had to do our thing. But I also knew that, it was my first time sort of taking orders from Billy, so to speak.
Right.
And it was not weird at all. I thought it was going to be I mean, I'm kind of giving away something for Billy here. Not movie wise, but like,
Right.
it felt weird to me that it didn't feel weird. Like I thought that I was going to be like, oh, well, you know, for however many years or however, whatever, because we worked at Kroger together and Blockbuster, and I was always like telling, in so many ways, telling him what to do in a way. Because I was the floor supervisor guy, and then I was the office supervisor at Kroger, and then I was the manager at Blockbuster, and none of those things mean anything. But I never really ran it like, you know, all underlings must do what I say. You know, it wasn't like that. It was, we all have a job to do. We're part of a team. Let's get it done. And I'm going to do, if I ask you to do something, it's because I'm doing this. So you do that and I do this. I'm planning, but I will do any of those things. So it got to a point where we didn't really have to say anything. We just came in, we had fun, we talked about movies, and then we did our thing and we got out of there. It's fun. So, I don't know. I just really, really, really love that experience, and I want it back. Like, okay, so pandemic, go away. Game Chasers 2 in whatever way that's going to be, whatever format that will take. Let's do that. We
need to finish the first one first.
No, I know. But so
we have pickup shots to do.
So Billy, I'm just kidding. I know we have been working on some things in the last week, so I know he's pushing. But it's one of those things where it's almost like, can we get through the release of this so we can get on to the next one? It's kind of a weird thing to say. But, and that's why I kept asking like Leon and Peter, and it's like, okay, so what's the best process? Is it the being on set, or is it the release? Is it the pre-production? And of course, Peter was like, no, it's production. It's when you're seeing everything come together. All that planning that if you wrote it, it's all of those things coming together and working. And that's one of the things that I was asking Billy. Like the best, it's when you sit back and you go,
this is actually happening. This is actually working.
It's working. Yep. It's not only happening, but it's working. And that's one of the things that I asked Billy.
Music's the same way, though.
Right.
Because writing the music is it's fun and exciting. But when you go in the studio and you start laying down the tracks and they start to layer up, like, holy shit, this works. And you start hearing stuff and seeing things that you didn't realize were inherent in the art. And I think movies are the same way, where you start, because you can read a script and interpret something, and then you think you're going to do it a certain way, and then on the day it changes. Like I always go back to that one scene with me and Chief in the woods, that until we actually did it, I did not know. I wasn't sure how it was going to pan out, and then he come up with his delivery, and it changed everything, and the whole scene is better for it because everybody's parts get to now step up as a result, because now you've got context. You got this amazing context, and now it makes sense why my character is doing what he's doing and the way he's doing it. And then everyone else's reactions to Chief and me make more sense, and it just became this really cool ensemble thing.
I'm really curious to see how that plays out. I want to see how it plays.
I can't wait to see the final version of it. The rough cut that I saw, I almost pissed my pants. It was so good. I really, really dug it. And because of the multiple takes that we have or had done and the different ways it could be played off, there's a lot of different ways it could play in the edit, which is, I've said it a million times and I'll say it here. One of the reasons that I like the videos that Billy makes, not just the Game Chasers, but everything, that motherfucker is a master of the editing process. I love the way that he sews a story together and the way that he story tells in the edit. And anytime I've ever done an edit of anything since becoming a fan and now a friend, I try to, not necessarily what would Billy do, but I look at editors like him and some other director editors that I admire, and I go, okay, I gotta try to step it up to this level and shit, or at least make it interesting, because it's pacing and just I love the way he does it. So like, and I know that it sounds like I'm blowing a lot of smoke up his ass, but the fact is like I said it almost every day on set. I can't wait until Billy gets in the editing bay with this footage because holy shit, this is fire. And I can't wait to see what he does with this fire and turns it into this blazing inferno of a film, because the story is there and he's got a lot of different ways that he can mold it and break it apart and reshape it and do some cool stuff. And it's easy for me to gush about it because I was in the thing, but as a fan taking a step back, there's such potential for this to be, because I've seen so many independent films come and go. Friends of mine in a band I was in called Sala, which was a band that all the lyrics originally were about Indiana Jones, and later went on to be about other movie monsters and shit. And when their drummer left, I'm like, you guys don't get a choice. I'm going to be your drummer. They're like, oh, yeah, cool. Those guys did a movie back in like 2004, 2005. And they filmed it over like a year and a half. There's massive continuity errors in the hair and stuff. And they actually call that out in the introduction to the film, which is great. Very self-aware. And it's a movie called Die Zombies Die. And it was really cool freaking movie, right? Like, this is one that we're up to sit down and watch. It's one you want to kick back with. Because on one hand, it's a pretty cool story, and it's got some really cool ideas, but there's also a lot of humor in it. And there's also then, of course, the added layer of humor that comes with, this is an independent film with a low budget, and shit happens in the edit. Like, you can tell there's some stuff that they didn't get quite right or whatever. But like, seeing that, and as much as I revere that movie and as funny as it is to me, it's very amateur hour, right? You can tell. Like, there's not a moment of that film that doesn't have some degree of to it, which is part of its charm. And now the next thing that I'm aware of was the horror movie I was in after Party Massacre, which was basically a death metal themed horror. And it was supposed to be a porn, but they took the porn out at the last second so they could get distribution through Best Buy. It's a true story. Which made the movie almost unintelligible. It was almost hard, and you see how that production went. And you watch the movie and it's the same thing. Like, there's not a single scene in that movie that doesn't have a little in it because you can tell it was shot on a shoestring budget. Then I go to the Game Chasers movie, and it's like everything's being done right. Like, you cut the corners where you have to, but very few corners had to be cut. And the angles and the lighting and the shooting and the acting and everything is just on point, and it's clicking, and it's like this like, finally, like, this is something that what I saw of the cut there, aside from things that need to be cleaned up from a technical perspective that are going to be cleaned up, or missing effects or whatever, there's not a moment of in the whole thing. It's just, you got to clean up the edit a little bit, which he was already working on at that point, and everything else that needs to be done, and it's just there. It's right there. And can't wait.
It's weird that I feel like, in a lot of ways, I mean, I feel the same way, by the way. I'm very, very excited, and like,
can't tell.
Yeah. Well, again, it was that first week. After that first week, yeah, I do know a little bit about the cleanup.
Little bit.
Some of that sound is fun, but it's. I feel like in a lot of ways this has become a almost like a Game Chasers movie hype channel, but
it isn't meant to be. Right.
I don't care. If you think that, then think that. But this is
the thing about that is that, one, a lot of us are getting to have these long conversations we didn't have the opportunity to have, and we've all been sitting there going, and I can tell people about the movie and they think it's super cool, but they don't get it. They don't understand what's there. Like, is this going to be Schindler's List? Fuck no. And this is going to be like, this comedy classic? Probably not. It's just not going to get in front of that many faces. But for the people that do get to see it, it's going to be a cool experience and a great story that was also a lot of fun to make. And when the people that know this get together, of course we want to gush about it because no one else fucking understands. No one else understands except for those that were there. So when we get a chance to talk, or you and Leon, or Leon and I, or Billy, whatever, we all get it. There's that shared experience, and we have to get that energy out somehow.
And that was what was great about Peter. Being able to have Peter on, and I tried to do, look, I'm doing the best that I can with the way that I would want to watch this, because this is really a show for me. So I hope you guys like it, but this show is really tailor-made for what I want. So, and
that's how the best art is made.
Right. So that, at least that's the thinking process with this show. But with Peter, man, he loves this movie.
Yeah.
And there was no need for him to come onto this show. There was no need for him to talk as when I said, so how did you feel about the process? And the way that his eyes lit up and was like, I can't wait for part 2. Like, I want to work on part. Gosh.
Well, you look at everything that dude's done and the experience he has. He's almost got his pick of projects at this point in his career, and he could do anything he wants. He could go out and direct his own flicks at this point and really make some stuff. And I'm sure he will, and I'll watch all of them because that guy's a fucking genius in his own right. For him to take our little movie and be that appreciative of it, it only speaks volumes. It let's bring up the V word. It validates how we feel about the process.
Yeah,
because one of the things that Roger Meadows Taylor from Queen said in a documentary many years ago has stuck with me in my entire career of creative endeavors. He said, when you're in the studio, invariably you think it's the seventh wonder of the world, and invariably it is not. Because you have to get some outside perspective. That's what producers are for, and that's why you do listening parties and stuff like that. And I think that it's very much the same with when you're making a YouTube video or you're making a movie or whatever. So when we're in a situation where we have this little echo chamber of ours, to have someone that has no real allegiance to the film idea. He was a hired hand that came in and did a job, albeit an extremely important job. And he put a lot of his heart into it. And of course, he's invested in seeing it do well for that reason. But I know that there's been jobs he's been hired to do that he went in, gave his all, but he doesn't like it. Like he may like the stuff he did. He may be proud of like the camera work, but as an idea or as a story, that happens all the time when you're a for-hire person in any job, right? He had absolutely no obligation to be as hype about the movie as we were, and we are. And the fact that months on, he retains that excitement, to me is a huge kind of his proof is in the pudding that we do have something here that's really special, that is going to really resonate with people on some level, at least. And if nothing else, it is my hope that when Melvor and Jay and Billy sit down for the first time to watch it together, if they, as the three of them, like it,
right,
to me, the movie is successful at that point. If they can look at it and go, wow, I'm proud of this. Billy's always going to have that could have done this, could have done that. That's what directors are. Okay? Spoiler alert, right? But if he can look at it and say, damn, I set out to do this and we fucking did it. To me, that would be the ultimate success. And then to show it to other people. And the first time I hear a laugh in that theater, should we be blessed enough to actually have a theater open up to do this? But the first time I hear someone else not involved in the process laugh at the movie, that for me is going to be great. And then the next level will be to laugh at something I do.
Right.
But all it takes is one. All I need is one. I need one thing. So I'm like, God damn, or laugh. Like for an album, a lot of people are going, holy shit, that's heavy. And I'm good. I need one of those, right? And then with something like a YouTube video, I need one person to say that it touched them or they laughed, and the movie, it's the same thing. And I can't wait for the opportunity to see people react to it. There's going to be people that shit on it just because they shit on everything. There's going to be people that say, this is good. Wasn't what I was expecting, but it was good. And there's going to be that sect of people, because they're out there, that are going to latch onto this. And they're going to show it to friends. And they're going to show it to, their loved ones. And it's going to mean something altogether different to them. It's going to take on a life of its own. And that's what I'm excited for with this stuff. Like, it just...
Is it... Okay, well, I got to say this. We've been going for over 3 hours. And I don't know of a better way to end than by saying what you just said.
Okay, that's fair enough.
But... Yeah, I mean, I've got some things that I've got to take care of. Got to help the wife with some mask making. But yeah, I get to go out in public for hopefully a very short amount of time, because I'm still a little frightened. But
I get it.
We're gonna make some masks. But guys, I mean, Jim. Everybody, Mr. Jim, oh my gosh. I didn't even mean to not like pizza, but Jim, Mr. Grindhead Jim, what a pleasure it is having you on the show. I'm so proud to be, of course, involved with you with this project, but I'm glad that we've started up this friendship that, we can help support each other. And I mean, gosh, it's beautiful, man. It's awesome.
It is, man. I love having you as a brother, and I'll be on the show anytime that you want. And I really always enjoy my time with this. I love to tell a good story, in case you couldn't tell. And I've got tons of them, as I'm sure I've illustrated in the last 3 hours. And if you're listening at home, hey, thanks for sticking through it, because it was a lot, because I don't shut up. Like right now, I can't stop talking. You see, I'm still talking. So thanks for having me. I'll come back anytime, and I had a blast.
Well, thank you again. Thank you for watching. I mean, gosh, the Garath, is that, again, I feel like I'm still saying that wrong, but thank you for, I mean, gosh, he's stuck around the whole time. He's loved it. Mm-hmm. I don't know who else. Billy, of course, thank you for your support. We got Mom and Mouthy in the chat too, right at the end here. Do. So thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you for watching. And we will be, well, I guess Wednesday, with a very special guest. I'm very excited about, but 8-Bit Eric will be on this show.
Ooh, Eric's good get, man.
Yeah, and so I'm very excited to have him on, and we are going to chat about, well, really about Eric more than anything, but I'm sure we'll, inevitably we're going to be talking about some of this Game Chasers movie thing too. So, but guys, thank you. Thank you for watching. Again, thank you, Jim, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. I heard my phone.